Today we will start a new story that you will definitely like. So let's get started. The scene begins in Devil's Palace, which is also called the Demonic Alliance. There is a huge crowd gathered here. Bohan is left behind, a bearded man explains. He says that anyone can come here. No matter which faction they belong to, as long as they have talent, they are taught demonic martial arts. That man thinks, who would be a fool to miss such an opportunity? His companion regrets this. He wishes he were not so old so he could try it himself. Then the bearded man's gaze falls on something strange in the crowd. He feels that someone has died. But his companion laughs. The bearded man asks again, "Who is that young boy? Who looks exactly like an undertaker?" Everyone's eyes turn to that young man. The crowd parts as he moves forward. The boy's name is Bohan Ansal. While walking, he remembers his grandfather. He thinks that this is just the beginning. Bohan remembers. His grandfather was the one who gave him his name when he was found alone lying in a snowy field. Bohan remembers his grandfather, who had taught him the job of burying dead people because they themselves were undertakers. Once Bohan told his grandfather that the corpse they saw belonged to a swordsman, whose fighting style is very fast. He made this estimate based on the muscles of the dead man's right calf, especially the front part of the calf, which was the hallmark of this swordsmanship. Grandfather smiled and said that his grandson is a skilled undertaker gifted by the one above. Bohan remembers how difficult life was and that people hated him because of his profession. But he was happy because grandfather was always with him until the miserable night arrived. That night, grandfather saw someone outside and said, "Good people never look for you, and those who do are never good." "They are never good," Bohan was sleeping. Then grandfather lifted him up and said, "Let's play a game. Let's see who performs the death act the best." He said that if Bohan performed well this time, he would receive the clothes and sword he had always dreamed of. Bohan's face lit up with happiness. Grandfather said they should stay only until morning, when Bohan would be ready. Bohan was left behind. After that, grandfather took his sword and stepped out of the house. Outside, a mysterious man was waiting. He told grandfather that he had been hidden like a mouse. Then he revealed grandfather's true identity. He is Boni, the seven-branched demonic blade. Grandfather admitted that it had been a long time since he had heard this name. The mysterious man taunted him, saying that after leaving the position of deputy master at Devil's Palace, he was now doing a lowly job like burying corpses. Grandfather said that he chose this work to atone for his sins. Then he offered his life and said, "Kill me elsewhere so that the innocents are not harmed." The man mocked him with laughter. But he agreed and said, "All right, but don't try to run away." Over there, Bohan was hidden nearby. He breathed a sigh of relief. He thought the danger had passed. But after a while, he started trembling and thought that he could no longer bear it. His desire was to receive the sword and clothes that his grandfather had promised. But the cold was so intense that he could not endure it. He emerged from the hiding place and wondered where his grandfather was. He would usually come to find him when the game ended. He thought that perhaps the law enforcement had called them again. In his anger, he thought that these people don't even regard undertakers as human. Ansal moves forward, and upon seeing the scene ahead, he becomes terrified. He reaches the spot by running. Then he sees his grandfather lying on the ground. Blood streams from his eyes and Ansal screams. Grandfather falls to his knees and asks what happened. But the grandfather can only ask for forgiveness. He softly says that his time has come now. He wants Ansal not to proceed with burying the dead. He begins coughing up blood. Ansal chuckles, "Do not say anything, grandfather." But he is stubborn. "Don't ever think about taking revenge." Ansal, while crying, refuses and says he cannot forgive those responsible. He says that if his grandfather has passed away, he will also die and go with him. Because his grandfather always said there is no difference between hell and this world. So even if he has to stay in hell, he will stay with him. Grandfather says to him for the last time. He tells him that he must go far away. He says the time spent with him was his greatest happiness. Then his mother stops, and they collapse on the ground. Ansal's eyes fill with tears. He can't believe that this is true. A short while later, he prepares to bury his grandfather's body. He touches his grandfather's face and realizes that they said they wouldn't take revenge, only to protect him. But this time, he will not heed their words. He carefully examines his grandfather's wounds and sees both of his hands had been cut from top to bottom. In the middle, the blow was redirected toward the eyes. Ansal understands that this is some strange swordplay. It is taught only in the demonic sect. This was the Tiano yoga technique. Then he examines the back. There he finds 93 marks of hidden weapons. Thus the attacker was alone. But he had a device that could throw hundreds of weapons at once. In the end, he sees a strange discoloration under the attacker's tongue and on his nails. Ansal guesses that this discoloration is caused by a poisonous toxin. The toxin rots both flesh and blood. Now, putting all the clues together, he draws a map of the attacker. The attacker is demonic and knows the Tiano yoga technique. He wields high-level hidden weapons. He also uses that poison. It melts flesh and spoils blood. Ansel thinks that only someone of this caliber could have done it. He looks at his grandfather's corpse, and he swears inward. He vows that no matter what happens, he will find the killer. He reaches the registration office of Devil's Palace. There he writes his name, Bohan Ansel of the Ganjang clan. The staff there mock him. Which village does the Ganjang clan belong to? He feels uneasy when he sees the clause on the consent form demanding the surrender of bodily freedom. A staff member says rudely, either leave a fingerprint or leave the premises. Ansel bites his thumb with his teeth. Blood drips and the employee is stunned. Ansel thinks that the moment his grandfather died, his own life also shattered. Now he has nothing left, except for the path of revenge. He presses his blood-soaked thumb onto the paper. It occurs to him, this competition is the first step on his path of revenge. After this, the story summarizes. The orthodox and unorthodox sexes have been fighting for centuries to seize the MAM world. The Marble Alliance leads the orthodox sex, which talks about justice. Meanwhile, the unorthodox sex roams around the Devil's Palace. It worships only strength. For a long time, these two forces maintained a balance. But the orthodox wanted to gain an advantage. Because of that, they created 18 martial masters who were called the greatest good masters. Devil's Palace also thought of a way to respond to this new threat. Their plan was to create 10 demon lords. For this, they made an offer. Without caring about any prior affiliations, they would select 10 talented people and teach them the martial arts of 10 demonic sects. This offer attracted many young people, and they ran towards Devil's Palace. Ansel also stands in the crowd, and he feels a strange sensation. A very powerful aura is emanating from some of the people present here. He feels that perhaps one of them is connected to his grandfather's killer. Because the killer is a martial arts master of that kind, he understands that Ansel cannot yet judge the abilities of those. To take revenge on such individuals, he will have to become a master himself, and currently he has no affiliation and no martial arts. Therefore, his only way to gain strength quickly is to act. He resolves to become one of the 10 demon lords. Then all the applicants gasp and look in some direction. A striking man with thick white hair and red eyes appears, and he loudly announces his presence. That his name is Head Instructor Hu Ring. The people present recognize him. There is a nickname associated with his name. The Bloody Gold Dagger, Head Instructor Hu Ring explains further that this place is for finding the most talented individuals among all demonic races. And those who pass every test they have prepared will become candidates for the 10 demon lords. Then he announces the first test, in which the fighters of Devil's Palace will assess the participants' physical fitness. The test begins, and the examiners examine the applicants' bones and muscles with their hands. It frightens some people, because they were expecting some kind of competition or fight. Ansel notes that those who pass this examination, they are being sent to the next location. When Ansel's turn comes, an examiner comes to him, and touching his arm expresses silence and melancholy. He thinks that this young man is finished. However, he is not, he is Ansel. That someone has come here with a body like Ansel's. He gets a glimpse of a true, unique killing intent from him. But still, he decides that he will not let him pass. Ansel had already decided that up to now he had learned everything. He only had to handle the bodies. Therefore, passing a martial arts test based on physical fitness was not something within his ability. But he believes that this is not the end. After the first test, one of the failed candidates starts shouting. He objects, saying that this test is not fair at all. If physical fitness is everything, what is the point of holding a competition? Then what is the point of holding a competition? The head instructor Hu Rang answers. He says that muscles and bones are the most essential for learning martial arts. For this reason, they organize the competition to select talent from different regions. He then scolds a man. He tells him that he didn't even pass the easiest criteria, yet dares to complain. The instructor assures everyone. He says there is no need to panic and begins to explain. He explains that in the second test, they will select those who may be weak in physical fitness, but can learn martial arts quickly. Suddenly, while announcing the second test, the head instructor gives an order. He orders that those who fail the first test must fight each other. Only one person may remain alive. Everyone is shocked. What kind of test is this? All contestants stand on the same side. They are given the order to kill each other because they believe it will benefit them. He thinks that if someone has to kill, the situation becomes advantageous for that person. He fixes his gaze on Ansel and a red-haired young man. He raises his large sword while shouting. Die, he shouts as he attacks. In a split second, blood splatters everywhere. The attacker's name is revealed. Yavan Chang strikes directly at the heart and kills the red-haired youth. The other contestants, upon seeing this, are filled with shock and terror. Ansel watches everything attentively and thinks. He notes that while attacking, Yavan barely missed the ribs and aimed straight for the heart. He concludes that although his own body is weak, his reflexes and agility are swift. Yavan stands with his chest broadened. He boasts, "Who else wants to die like me? Come forward." An officer standing at a distance says. Van Cheng works quickly, he remarks. But he lacks intellectual understanding. The head instructor adds, this place is full of useless fools. An examiner thinks that displaying strength in such fights makes one a target. But perhaps it will motivate the others to advance. In reality, fear and chaos spread across the entire field. Contestants start attacking each other without reason. The head instructor shouting and screaming notes. This is not the beginning of death for the youth. The fight escalates, they keep ruthlessly killing each other. He says that when death appears before you, you lose your senses. But soon he and his assistant see that not everything is like that. Not everyone turned out to be foolish, because Ansal and another fighter remain completely composed and cold-hearted amid the massacre. Ansal thinks that all these people are fools, who have let the fear of death dominate them. He thinks carefully. It was the head instructor's order, he reflects. Stay alive until only one person remains. He concludes that the purpose is not to kill but to survive. Ansal believes this. If he acts wisely and with a cool head, he can stay alive. He silently swears to himself. He vows, whatever happens, I will stay alive. Suddenly, a fighter approaches him. He thinks Ansal looks pitiable, and perhaps he had been hidden until now. Ansal sees the thin sword marks on the surrounding corpses. He understands that they were made by a slender sword. He now decides to kill him himself. He attacks with a strange weapon, but Ansal evades cleanly. The box strapped to his back gets hit. The attacker mocks him. What is this box on your back for? Are you a traveling salesman? Ansal ignores his words. He picks up a piece of cloth from the ground. For a moment, he remembers his grandfather and the Christmas card his grandfather gave him. His red eyes start to shine with anger and determination. The attacker sees Ansal holding a weird tool. What will you do with such a useless sword? But before he can complete his strike, another calm fighter suddenly jumps in. He knocks him down with a single blow. The fighter says to Ansal, there is no need to thank me. When someone as wretched as you is with me, it diverts the enemy's attention. And it makes things easier for us. Then it adds, however, your eyesight is sharp. But it's clear that you haven't learned martial arts. I could finish someone like you at any time. From a distance, the head instructor watches the scene. His gaze fixes on the young man's sword, and he recognizes it. It is the Sword of Annihilation, the legendary blade once wielded by the most powerful wandering swordsman, Black Soul. The head instructor's assistant speaks. He says the youth's name is Nojeng Wanggang. He explains that he obtained both Black Soul's secret manual and the sword in a desolate valley. He adds that he learned everything solely from the manual. His techniques are unpolished. The instructors continue their conversation, the assistant remarks. At this moment, Nujeng Wanggang is the only disciple of Black Soul. Even though his physical strength is modest, he remains a strong candidate for the 10 Demon Lords. He could even become the winner of this test. The head instructor agrees and says that although Wanggang is still a novice, he is not yet worthy of lifting the Sword of Annihilation. Nevertheless, unless something completely unexpected occurs, no one present is stronger than him. After a long, bloody struggle, only 2 combatants remain among the corpses in the arena. Nujeng Wanggang and Ansal. Wanggang stands on the training ground. Ronnie points out that Ansal somehow managed to survive at last. He turns toward Ansal and challenges him. If you want to defeat me, then you can also become a candidate for the 10 Demon Lords. Come attack. Ansal watches him with calm eyes. He thinks that though Wanggang is the strongest here, but he has identified his weakness. He is completely confident that he can win. Wanggang leaps into the air and says, in the meantime, let me test your skill a little. Then he launches a powerful attack on him. Ansal continuously dodges his attacks. Only bruises appear on his body. Wanggang laughs and taunts. Your greatest art is that you somehow keep surviving. It's surprising you're still standing. The head instructor and his assistant watch the fight closely. They see that even though Ansal seems to be taking hits, he is actually evading them. But in reality, at the exact last moment of each strike, he moves his body, so that he can avoid a fatal injury. The head instructor is stunned. Ansal, after seeing the corpses, memorized Wanggang's attack pattern. He praises his incredible observation. Ansal, despite being drenched in blood, says calmly to Wanggang, your sword techniques are useless. Even after all those attacks, you only managed to cut my skin. Hearing this, Wanggang is left stunned. The instructors are also astonished by his bravery, Ansal knows. He knows that evading and launching a counterattack are 2 separate matters. Delivering a powerful counter-attack from his slender body is difficult. But Wanggang gets riled up by his words. He says it in a growl. I thought I'd let you stay alive a little longer, but your arrogance forced me to give you a quick death. He shouts, wishing to die. I don't even finish, I prepare the final blow. Ansal sees the attack coming. He realizes his chance will come only once and remembers. When he studied the corpses, he found that one gang's final blow always targets vital points such as the heart and head. That is when he intends to kill. So the sword always moves upward. As soon as one gang lunges to strike his head, Ansal swiftly lands down. He dodges the attack. At that moment, his counterattack goes toward the neck. He exploits the weakness he had already discovered. During the fight, Ansal remembers the vital point. If even a child strikes that spot with full force, a grown man can instantly lose consciousness. Using this knowledge, Ansal thrusts his short sword toward Wang Gang's neck. Wang Gang remains standing, blood dripping. Then he suddenly falls to the ground. Thus, the winner of the duel is Ansal. The exhausted, blood-soaked Ansal mutters. It's over, the instructors are watching this scene. Ron stays behind, the assistant says. It was a completely unexpected turn. The head instructor says angrily. He had great expectations for Black Soul's sword art. But only disappointment befell him. Then he announces in a loud voice. Ansal has passed the second test. Upon hearing this, Ansal faints and drifts into an old memory. He has a dream in which he runs towards them joyfully. He says, I am here. But when he reaches them, the grandfather says, I cannot see you. The dream suddenly turns into a frightening nightmare. He sees his grandfather's distorted face and realizes his soul cannot even reach his eyes. He wakes up terrified. Ansal regains consciousness and sees that he is in a strange place. Around him sit young fighters of various ages. He realizes he fainted because he had lost a lot of blood. Now his serious wounds have healed and there is no pain. He realizes that she is from the Devil's Palace. According to Destiny, a famous doctor must have treated her. He looks around and notes that the remaining participants all have strong bodies. He also recognizes some faces. He guesses that these were the ones who had passed the earlier test. Seeing their contemptuous looks, he thinks this was bound to happen. Then the ship's door opens, and everyone is told to disembark. An officer announces that they have reached the next test area. The candidates chase the officer, and they reach an island that looks scary. There he points toward some caves, and he says that from now on this will be their place to sleep. He orders them to discard their old clothes and weapons, and wear the new clothes and armor that have been prepared. He also says that they can choose any cave they wish. A survivor chooses a cave and says that it turned out to be far more comfortable and suitable than he expected. Meanwhile, two candidates begin to argue over the rights to a cave. But some people intervene in the middle, and he thinks that they have no idea what happened in the other test. How carefree and reckless all of this is. He notes that many of them are wearing expensive clothes. He wonders if they all come from big famous clans. Ansal thinks to himself that the second test was actually a way to filter out people who could be easily killed. Just then, the officer who distributes the caves comes to him, and he taunts his laziness, hurry up and choose a cave. He thinks to himself that Ansal's keen eye had already impressed him, but he never expected that this boy would survive. Now he is curious what this next decision will bring. Ansal points without hesitation towards a dark, unappealing cave. He says that this is mine. The officer mocks him. You chose a place as shabby as your torn clothes. You truly disgust me. But the officer becomes impressed after seeing Ansal's choice. He thinks that this boy is truly a real genius. He knows that although the cave's entrance appears small and dirty, it can still be useful. But the interior is quite vast, allowing training to be done comfortably. Its small entrance from above makes it easy to fend off any intruder. The officer observes that most people avoid this cave because its entrance is not appealing. But Ansal assessed the situation correctly and chose it. He tells him, there are 10 different buildings on Hell Island for teaching martial arts. In each building, they can learn the martial art of a particular demonic sect. He also adds, they can learn all martial arts if they wish, or they can focus on just one. They have the freedom to completely set their own routine. They may sleep, play, train, or practice independently. Hearing this, Ansal is shocked. He remembers. He recalls that the Burmese in the other test were terrifying, and he cannot believe they are now given such peaceful freedom to train. In a short while, the survivors start arguing with each other. They wonder which martial art should be learned first. Most people gravitate towards the Fire Rain sword set, because they have heard it is the most powerful. Then everyone runs toward that building. Ansal watches them and thinks. He has also heard the same. It is the most powerful among the demonic sects. Learning its art would be extremely useful. But then he pauses and decides. He knows it is not right for him. He knows that because he has never learned any basics of martial arts, starting with the most powerful art would be foolish. He thinks about what he actually needs right now. He then chooses a different path. Ansal walks towards a shabby old building. He realizes that this is the Wandering Beast Pavilion. He remembers that the reputation of this pavilion has fallen greatly. It is now counted among barely 10 demonic sects. Its existence has survived only for that reason. In the past, it produced many great martial arts masters. He also remembers this. He recalls that his grandfather had told him about them. Ansal decides that he will take this training. But as soon as he moves forward, the ground begins to tremble. He feels the shaking beneath his feet. Suddenly, a man's head emerges from the ground. The man calls himself the master of the secret wing of the Wandering Beast Pavilion. He asks whether Ansal has come here with this expectation. He tells him that he could become one of the 10 demon lords. Ansal stands respectfully and responds. Yes, he wants to learn the martial arts of the Wandering Beast Pavilion. Sabu looks at him from head to toe. Then laughing, he commands. He must leave immediately or he will invite death. Sabu declares that he has no desire to teach. He refuses to teach martial arts, especially to someone who appears so weak. Ansal answers confidently that he has heard. If anyone learns the martial arts of the Wandering Beast Pavilion, they can survive any situation. Sabu laughs at his words. Ansal states that he also knows about a martial art that has almost become extinct. Then Sabu warns that the art is so difficult that even the greatest geniuses can barely learn it. Because the transformation begins with changing the body. And in a condition like his, he wouldn't survive even a single day. Sabu then says that now Ansal must have understood, so he should leave. But instead of going, Ansal bends completely on the ground and places his forehead on the soil. Sabu stands up and asks what he is doing. Ansal answers without hesitation, because you have filled me with the desire to learn. I am paying respect to my new master. Sabu says, angry and frustrated. A stubborn fool, but in the end he concedes and accepts. And he gets ready to teach him. Sabu emerges completely from the ground. And he tells Ansal not to nurture misunderstandings. He is teaching him only for that reason. Because this is the decree of Devil's Palace. Then he repeats his introduction. I am Master Sabu of the Wandering Beast Pavilion. From now on, call me Master Sa. Ansal tries to tell his name. But Sabu interrupts in the middle. And says you are just trainee number 1. After that, Sabu starts training without wasting any time. Suddenly, Ansal sees darkness all around. And he realizes that he cannot see anything. Sabu says that he has temporarily sealed his vision using the secret technique of the Wandering Beast Pavilion. This is the initial condition for learning the Wandering Beast path. A basic technique that makes a human's senses as sharp as an animal's, and his reflexes become like those of a beast. He explains further because they affect each person differently. For this reason, mastering this basic technique is extremely difficult. And that is why the pavilion is in a state of ruin nowadays. But if someone masters it, they acquire wandering, animal-like sensations. Sabu then adds with a sarcastic smile. Most people die before they even reach this stage. He tells Ansal that the darkness will last about an hour. He says that and leaves. Ansal is left alone in the darkness. He hoped that the other senses would instantly become sharp. But that doesn't happen. He feels that an hour is too long. And he must adapt as quickly as possible. He thinks that countless fighters are trying to make room among the 10 demon lords. And if he is attacked in this condition, he would be completely helpless. At that moment, an attacker silently pounces on him from above. He falls to the ground. Only then does he realize that when sight is lost, balance is the most crucial weapon. Night falls and Sabu returns. He silently taunts himself that this boy must have been wandering in the dark all this time. But when he sees Ansal, he is startled. The other trainees, meanwhile, wait patiently for the awakening of their other senses. In contrast, Ansal was practicing intense movements in the darkness, fighting an imaginary enemy. He was moving in the darkness with complete rhythm and ease. Sabu becomes convinced that this is the reason for Ansal's sharp perception. He sees that Ansal has become a master of darkness. Only then does he challenge him to evade his sword. After 3 days of continuous and rain-soaked training, Ansal still practices with Sabu. And in a sword mood, he strikes Ansal's stomach. This time Ansal cannot escape and the strike lands directly, Sabu thinks. 3 days have passed, now he should start questioning my training. But Ansal continues the practice without saying anything. Finally, Sabu himself stops the strike and asks, "You aren't curious to know how to avoid these attacks? Or what the real theory behind this training is?" Ansal answers calmly, "You yourself said that the essence of the Wandering Beast Pavilion's art is this, that a person must reach awakening enlightenment on his own. Therefore, I have assumed that whatever I am doing must have some reason." Sabu is left stunned after hearing his words, and he assumes that he is right. Then Sabu says with enthusiasm, "All right, keep the training going." During training, Ansal reaches a new state. He feels that he can see the sword's upcoming trajectory. But at that moment, he also realizes that he will not be able to avoid the next strike under any circumstances. Therefore, Ansal decides that this time, instead of evading the strike, he will stop it. He actually blocks Sabu's strike. This surprises Sabu. Sabu wonders how he managed to block that silent strike. After only 3 days of training, Ansal collapses onto the ground, exhausted, and thinks that he couldn't even properly block the strike. Sabu comes to him. He offers him something to drink from a bamboo bottle. Ansal says thank you and drinks it. He stays thinking it was not water. It feels as if all the lost blood in his body returns, and a tremendous energy surges through his veins. Sabu says that this is superior spring spiritual water. He has cherished it his whole life. But now he feels that spending it on Ansal is not useless. Sabu feels excited that finally he has found a genius, which he has been waiting for years. After some time, the training continues. Sabu challenges Ansal again. He says his attack should be blocked. He continuously delivers fast and heavy sword attacks. Ansal barely manages to dodge and evade them. Suddenly, Sabu stands behind him and says he is fed up with Ansal's weak defense. Then suddenly he stops the attack. It happened and Ansal can't understand why he stopped. Then Sabu bursts out laughing loudly and says that at last he has found exactly what he was searching for. At that very moment, the seal on Ansal's eyes breaks. His sight returns. Sabu calls him by his full name and says he should abandon the idea of becoming one of the 10 demon lords and become the official disciple of his pavilion. He promises. If this happens, within 10 years he will make him the strongest martial arts master of the demonic sect. Ansal thinks that perhaps Sabu is telling the truth, but he remembers his grandfather's killer. He realizes that merely learning the martial arts of the Wandering Beast Pavilion will not be enough. He resolutely declares that he will become a demon lord. Sabu mocks him and says that if his goal is to learn the martial arts of all 10 demonic sects, it is impossible. Even the greatest heavenly demon could not do that. He explains that each martial art is created according to a particular body's structure and the flow of energy. No matter how talented someone is, they cannot learn more than 2 or 3 martial arts, and the fastest way to become the strongest is to focus on just one martial art. Ansal apologizes for his stubbornness. Sabu wonders if there is any way to change his mind. Finally, Sabu concedes and says that he will also teach him another martial art. Ansal asks Sabu why, since he has only learned the basics of the Wandering Beast Pavilion so far. Then Sabu suddenly makes a fast and precise strike. But this time, Ansal blocks it without any assistance. Sabu explains that the pavilion's martial arts are not taught merely by theory or steps. In fact, Ansal had been undergoing the real training of the wild beast path all this time. He realizes that every sword strike by Sabu was not a test, but the true form of the wild beast path. Ansal thanks his teacher, but Sabu rejects his thanks, saying he was only obeying Devil's Palace orders. He says he was only following the orders of Devil's Palace. Ansal still expresses his gratitude. He reminds Sabu of the ambrosia he once gave him. It was the elixir he had made him drink. He promises that he will never forget this kindness. Sabu scolds him. He says that forgetting is better. In the world of martial arts, forgetting favors and enmities in wars is the correct path. After a brief silence, Ansal leaves. From a distance, he watches his back. And in his mind, he thinks of the queen. He feels that this talent has finally come from somewhere. He believes that soon a bloody storm will rise on Hell Island. Over there, Ansal thinks that the heightened senses he gained from the Wandering Beast path grant him extraordinary awareness. But this continuous vigilance is exhausting, even when he does nothing. Yet his mind and body cannot find rest. He decides that he must learn to control and suppress his senses. He concentrates deeply. He imagines it as if trying to stop a single drop of water. After just a few moments, he opens his eyes, and he feels that this much control is enough for now. Ansal then takes out the map. He looks closely. A thought comes to his mind. He thinks that the Devil's Palace will not keep them on Hell Island for endless training. He draws the conclusion that their time here is limited. And now he has no other option left. Therefore, he decides that he must now go to the most powerful demon sect. The Fire Rain Sword sect is the sect in question. It was founded 700 years ago by K.H. Wabo, who established the Fire Rain Sword Order, which was considered the rival of the greatest heavenly demon order. When Ansal reaches there, he sees their martial hall looks like a grand palace. The Wandering Beast Pavilion's jagged hut is a complete opposite to the grand hall as he reaches the gate. A person opens the door. The person asks in surprise, who has arrived at this time. Ansal understands. He is the martial arts instructor there. He bows and says respectfully that he has come to learn their sword art. Jin Gakuk takes him inside and explains. He says his swordsmanship is the most elaborate, but it is also the most time-consuming, he adds. He notes that those who arrived half a month ago have already completed the preliminary exam and have reached the intermediate exam. Then he asks Ansal, why did he come so late? Ansal gives a straight answer. He says he had been learning martial arts at the Wandering Beast Pavilion until now. The trainer, startled, asks, do you mean that you have learned the Wandering Beast path? Ansal calmly nods in confirmation. The trainer thinks to himself. He thinks that this boy is certainly talented, but attaining mastery of the Wandering Beast path in just half a month is impossible. He thinks, my name is Jin Gakuk. I am in charge of the preliminary exam. You can call me teacher. He asks Ansal whether he truly wants to learn the Fire Rain Sword art. He suggests that perhaps it would be better for him to go to another exam. Ansal humbly expresses his gratitude to him, but he says firmly that he wants to learn only the art of the Fire Rain Sword sect. He accepts his stubbornness, and then he opens a huge scroll in front of him. He explains. It contains an introduction to basic styles like Fire Rain and the methods to practice them. He says to read it and practice on one's own. Ansal becomes confused and wonders what he is supposed to do with it. Jin Gakuk upset turns around and asks, "Do you mean that you don't know how to read the sword book?" Ansal admits that indeed he has never learned swordsmanship. Upon hearing this, Jin Gakuk flinches and watches in disbelief. He then asks again to confirm whether he truly has never learned swordsmanship throughout his entire life. He remembers that Ansal's record indeed states that he has only used Fire Rain so far. Even in the second test, he hadn't employed any special sword technique. Nevertheless, he finds it difficult to believe that this boy doesn't even know the most basic sword moves. But at the same time, he recalls his extraordinary observational ability and quick reactions. He thinks that even though Ansal is a completely blank slate, until now he has still reached this level. So if he is taught properly, his potential will be extremely tremendous. Therefore, Jin Gakuk changes his strategy and says that even though he cannot see the sword steps, he can at least read them. He asks him to read what is written on the scroll. Ansal reads, "Relax the whole body. Move in a smooth flow and then repeat the first thing. That is, relax the body." Jin Gakuk explains to him that this means that while sword fighting, he must keep his body relaxed and flexible, especially the torso and the waist. Ansal tries to follow these instructions, but he leans into a weird, awkward position. Jin Gakuk thinks how ironic it is that he has to teach him such basic things, in a place where 10 demon lords are chosen. He tells Ansal to stand properly again, and he corrects his posture. Then he explains, when the body is tense, then the torso also becomes tense, and it's important to control the mind and relax, so that every movement flows. Ansal responds immediately, and his stance becomes stable. Jin is impressed by his quick comprehension and correction. Rain steps aside, then Jin says with a smile, now his stance is correct, and he will instantly teach him the 13 forms of Fire Rain. Jin starts to explain the moves, and Ansal follows them with extraordinary speed and accuracy. Jin's doubt is completely dispelled. This boy is truly talented. When the training ends, Jin says that now he must imagine an enemy in front of him, and he must use the 13 forms of Fire Rain on it. This is a test. It will qualify him for the intermediate hall, and its real purpose is to reveal the hidden sword intent in his basic movements. He sees the hidden sword intent in his basic movements and understands. The chance he has been longing for has arrived earlier than expected, and now he has to prove himself. He closes his eyes, he concentrates, and he imagines the enemy. Then suddenly he opens his eyes, and the first technique releases an unarmed cyclone. Jin Gakuk watches attentively. Ansal advances to the second and third techniques. Floating misty clouds, it's Jin Gakuk. He looks at Ansal and thinks, are these really the Fire Rain forms? He wonders. The floating misty clouds technique should be soft and graceful, like the movement of clouds or the spreading of mist. But the way Ansal does it is very sharp and deadly. It looks extremely sharp and deadly. Jin Gakuk is stunned and thinks, is Ansal intentionally changing the movements? Changing the basic movements of a sword technique that has been passed down through generations is significant. Only a great master could do this, and he feels it. Ansal's altered sword movements have a tremendous killing intent. As if he is confronting his master's or his parents' enemies, Jin Gakuk thinks. The Fire Rain sword set style is considered the orthodox path of swordsmanship. If it has changed in such a radical way, it is alarming. Then what kind of life has Ansal led? Meanwhile, Ansal himself feels strange, because he feels the flow from his fingertips automatically changes the sword path. He thinks this might be due to the Wandering Beast path. He also realizes that the more he uses Fire Rain forms, the sharper his senses become, thanks to the Wandering Beast path. He thinks about fully integrating both styles but stops. He understands that if he does that, it would become a completely different sword and would not be valid for the 13 forms in Fire Rain test. In the end, he decides to quickly return to the basics and go back to the roots of the original sword. Suddenly, Ansal's mind forms a clear picture of the enemy, and he becomes rooted. Because he realizes this is the very scoundrel. He moves forward with full force. When executing the 7th technique, Heart of the Four Seas of the 13 forms of Fire Rain, his attack becomes extremely dangerous. But the opponent easily dodges his attack. Ansal realizes that this imaginary enemy is extremely fast. He thinks the foe is far faster than any human he has ever fought. He knows that if he gives the opponent a chance to attack, he will lose. Therefore, he decides he must use all the remaining techniques together. He puts all his strength into it. He continuously delivers powerful blows, but his imaginary opponent blocks every blow. In the end, the opponent cuts off both of his hands. Ansal feels this throughout the visualization. It feels as if his hands were truly cut off, and he cannot save or stop them. As soon as the attack ends, Ansal stands panting. All his energy has been depleted. Jin Gakuk looks at Ansal and thinks, he finally lost to his enemy. But then he steps forward. He says, "You have passed the test." Ansal looks surprised. He sees the queen's expression. Jin-gak explains. He explains that the real test in the elementary hall is not about winning or losing. It is about how well the trainee understands the sword, regardless of win or loss. And in real combat, how correctly one can perform the 13 forms of fire rain. He assures that Ansal has proven this. Then while returning Ansal's sword, he says, his performance was outstanding, and he is invited to the intermediate hall. Ansal thinks to himself, perhaps it was all a hassle for Jin-gak, teaching someone who knows nothing about swordsmanship. But still, Jin-gak taught him everything step by step. Ansal gratefully thanks him. Jin-gak smiles and encourages him. He encourages him to work even harder moving forward. Then Jin-gak also gives a warning. He warns that Ansal's sword has a very sharp killing intent. He must stay careful, otherwise that intent will control him. Ansal bows down with respect and pays homage. And he lives. At that moment, Jin-gak becomes completely convinced that Ansal was truthful. He truly learned the Wandering Beast path in only 2 weeks. Jin-gak thinks that his learning speed is indeed that fast. He notes that even the journey to the intermediate hall was completed much faster than expected. He believes that initially he doubted whether Ansal could reach the intermediate hall or not. But now he is absolutely sure. Ansal opens the door to the next hall. The instructor of the intermediate hall thinks about Wang Gang. He feels that perhaps Wang Gang will reject Ansal at the beginning. But gradually he will become a fan of him. Ansal enrolls in the intermediate hall. The Wang Gang instructor says something as soon as he sees him. It seems you have just passed the beginner's hall. Then he teases while laughing. If it took you more than 20 days to understand 30 forms, don't waste time here. Ansal explains that he arrived late because he had spent the first 15 days in the new pavilion. Wang Gang guesses this from his words. He deduces that Ansal is making this claim. He realizes that Ansal's time in the beginner's hall was actually not slow. But he feels contempt in his mind. He thinks that these are the same people. They stand ready to try learning the difficult beast path. He clearly states that he doubts Ansal's ability. Then Wang Gang starts the lecture. He explains that Thunder's fire rain sword is based on fast movements, and those who are not proficient with the sword end up injuring themselves while learning it. He adds that this martial art is difficult to use in real combat, just like the 13 forms of fire rain. Nevertheless, this is a basic martial art worth learning at this stage. Wang Gang emphasizes that their real goal right now is not to win, but to hone their swordsmanship. After that, he calls one of the trainees Hasing. Hasing steps forward and asks if he has the freedom to choose his own weapon. Wang Gang confirms this. Hasing immediately points towards Ansal. Instructor Wang Gang notices that this is a very deadly move of the Asher sword sect. But he is also impressed by Ansal's calm. Even in such a situation, he did not lose his balance. From that, his thoughts return to the doubt that perhaps Ansal has truly learned the Wandering Beast path. Hasing continues his powerful attack. Shouting, he says that this is the end of Ansal's life. He unleashed his special technique, Protective Bloody Wind Moon, and as soon as the two swords clashed, a massive explosion of energy occurred. The other students and the instructor are there. They are left stunned. Then Ansal remembers that he used the final form, Infinite and Boundless. The duel ends with this. Hasing falls to the ground. Blood streams from his mouth. The terrified students wonder if he is dead. Ansal calmly sheathes his sword on the battlefield. Instructor Wang Gang confirms to himself that Hasing is indeed dead. He delivered a precise strike to a vital point. Wang Gang asks Ansal whether he has always been a disciple of the Wandering Beast Pavilion. Ansal denies it. The instructor then asks if Ansal claims to have fully mastered the Wandering Beast path in just 2 weeks. Ansal says he has only learned the basics. Wang Gang makes a sarcastic remark about his words. Is the Wandering Beast Pavilion now teaching such lies to its pupils as well? Ansal begins to speak, but the instructor stops him. No statements are needed. He orders remove the body immediately. The students whisper to each other. Rain, why hasn't the murderer been punished in the training hall? Wang Gang shouts. Stay silent, and he reminds them. This is Hell Island. It is not a regular training hall. Anyone who uses a lethal technique must also be prepared to die. He then announces the resumption of the test. More duels occur. When everything ends, Wang Gang gathers the defeated students, who lost, and says that they have failed the test. He orders them to leave immediately and find another martial arts hall. One of them objects, saying it was just a match. I need another chance, but Wang Gang firmly refuses. He explains that it could happen. They pass the initial tests because of their physical fitness. But to learn the Fire Rain Sword, one needs talent, potential hard work, and both sweat and blood to push beyond one's limits. He says that they are deprived of these things. Therefore, they failed and were then expelled. The failed students have already left, and only Ansal stays in the hall. Wang Gang asks him why he didn't go. Ansal asks whether he should also go. The instructor explains that he has won the duel and passed the test. Therefore, he should move forward for the advanced test. Ansal replies that if he wants to rise higher, he would prefer to stay here. One gang asks for the reason. Ansal says that the only sword technique he has learned is the 13 forms of fire rain, and that he hasn't learned anything yet in the intermediate hall. One gang thinks that Ansal learned the wandering beast path and uncovered the Usura sword set technique, yet still claims that he learned nothing. One gang agrees to teach Ansal the Thunder Fire Rain sword, which is considered a continuation of the 13 forms of fire rain. But he initiates it strictly. He does not want any petty, comfortable, flashy tricks at all, and warns that if he sees Ansal use any sword technique that differs from the forms of fire rain, he will intervene. He will instantly cut off his opponent's head. One gang smiles to himself. Now he understands. He realizes that Ansal mastered the Wandering Beast path in just 2 weeks. Ansal immediately starts his training. He begins practicing the piercing lightning technique of the Thunder Fire Rain sword. After a while, one gang stops him. He says that it seems Ansal has grasped the technique. He has grasped the principles of this technique. Ansal looks at him in confusion. 4 days later, Ansal fully masters the training. Instructor One Gang remembers the past 4 days. He spent those 4 days in Ansal's training. He tested him in every way and confirmed that he didn't even have basic knowledge of sword techniques. He was truly a beginner who had just started learning swordsmanship. But One Gang was very impressed by Ansal's dedication and focus. He trained as if his life depended on mastering martial arts. One Gang explains to Ansal that the Thunder Fire Rain sword is a technique. It quickly twists the body and links movements. In it, most moves involve rotating the sword around the body. These moves are practically useless in a real fight. Nevertheless, One Gang notices that Ansal uses every technique exactly like this. As if he were truly about to kill someone, Ansal asks, "Isn't the real purpose of sword techniques this?" The instructor replies that demonic martial arts require a killing intent. But to reach a higher level, you must abandon the killing intent. In the Fire Rain sword, this killing aspect must be dropped. Gang warns Ansal. He says that if he cannot remove the killing intent from his mind, his martial art will harm him. Ansal realizes that instructor Jin Gak told him the same thing. He believes that Jin Gak has also kept a killing intent in his heart and has killed anyone who crossed his path. But for this reason, he lost his respect and pride, and his martial skills also declined. Gang advises Ansal. He says that techniques based on killing appear to be a high-level path. But in reality, they are a major obstacle on the endless path of swordsmanship. He must abandon his killing intent. Ansal remembers his grandfather's words. He recalls that the past of sword wielders is often filled with sorrow and tragedy. Therefore, the people of Murem do not like to talk about their past. Ansal asks why the gang is telling him this, and the gang replies. He says that he also lives his life with murder in his heart. Then the gang asks his name. And he answers. Bohan Ansal, the gang understands. That he is the very youth whom Jin Gak mentioned, who survived the second test alive and proved it. Then he says that there is a big problem ahead of Ansal. He doesn't even have a foundation in martial arts. His rivals have been learning martial arts since childhood. And if he wants to learn the Fire Rain sword correctly in the advanced hall, then the gap between him and them will increase even more. Therefore, he must master basic martial arts as quickly as possible so that a strong foundation can be built. Ansal bows in gratitude, and he thinks to himself that for this opportunity he would sacrifice his life, perhaps even his soul. Upon reaching the advanced hall, Ansal feels that the atmosphere there is completely different. He perceives a different kind of aggressiveness among the trainees. He watches. Now nobody looks at him with contempt, and he understands this. All this is because he killed the risk sign. He feels taunted. Before, people thought his job of cleaning corpses was worthless, but now they appreciate him for killing with a sword. Then an old instructor welcomes him. He says that he has heard of him, and he asks him to sit down. Because the class is about to start, the instructor announces that a new trainee has arrived. He will today explain the central reading of the Fire Rain sword and also the 7 teachings. He explains the basic principles. Strength should be evenly distributed throughout the body. Keeping a balanced posture is essential. Pull the chest in, push the back out, and don't put all the energy into a single strike. Ansal understands these principles and thinks that if he hadn't learned advanced martial arts in the intermediate hall, he wouldn't have grasped them. After that day's oral lesson ends, the instructor tells him to walk with him. Ansal follows him straight to a quiet garden. The instructor takes a leafy twig in his hand and explains to Ansal that there is a level where a person can defeat a swordsman even without holding a sword. At that level, a real sword is not needed. A person's own art becomes the sword. Suddenly, the instructor attacks Ansal with a twig. He then immediately stops and asks, "If you are suddenly attacked like this and you don't have a sword, how would you respond with sword martial arts?" He adds that while Ansal was in the intermediate hall, the trainees had already learned shining mysticism. They are now discussing its theory. The instructor warns him that if he does not understand the question properly, the instructor will not teach him. Therefore, give the answer after careful thought, Ansal thinks. If I didn't have a sword in my hand, I would answer. I would use my opponent's sword. He immediately darts to snatch the instructor's branch. The instructor laughs and says that his answer is hasty. Ansal is startled, he runs away when he looks. The instructor reaches behind him in an instant. Ansal tries to chase him, but the instructor easily dodges each of his attacks. He feels a shiver. He cannot even track the instructor's movements. He thinks that if he wants to stay in the advanced hall, then he must master it, he decides. By fully using the Wandering Beast path, he will read the instructor's movement flow and direction. Ansal focuses all his senses and attacks again, but the instructor, using his energy, throws him up and makes him fall. Ansal falls to the ground, and the instructor catches him before he can get up. The instructor announces loudly while laughing. He announces that Ansal has passed the test. Ansal asks in confusion, "I haven't even touched you." "Then how did I pass?" the instructor replies. He says that starting tomorrow, he will begin learning Shining Mysticism. He tells him to arrive early in the morning before anyone else arrives. Ansal becomes convinced. After Ansal leaves, the instructor looks at the twig he is holding in his hand. He thinks to himself, even a lamb eventually turns out to be a wolf. He smiles. He says that he has high expectations for Ansal. After the class ends that day, he decides to wander around Hell Island. He remembers what happened in the second test and thinks. He thinks that a fight could suddenly break out here at any time. Then he feels the presence of some people nearby. He counts and finds. He notices that 5 people emerge from the trees. The leader says to Ansal. He says that since coming from the intermediate hall, his behavior has been very strange. Another member says that they will now teach him a lesson. The leader boasts that since Ansal started the killing, they should not be blamed for the ensuing events. They are called the 5 Peak Swords. He advises Ansal to get ready. Ansal thinks to himself, there is someone else here. Then the leader of the 5 Peak Swords shouts at Ansal. But suddenly he falls to the ground and dies. His companion's eyes widen in shock. At that moment, a young man with red hair appears. His name is Seo Jinha. He looks at Ansal. He says he needs to talk. The remaining members of the 5 Peak Swords are seen. They become angry and ask him. He gives them an order. He says go away. He has no business with those who lose. Anger fills their eyes. But eventually they retreat. As they leave, they swear. They vow to return later for revenge. Ansal thinks to himself. He thinks this youth is extremely powerful. He observes that they call him a coward. Then he turns directly toward Ansal and asks, which side are you on? Earlier in the advanced training hall, the instructor was telling his student that they had learned the first technique of the Fire Rain Sword. But the true skill will only appear when everyone makes it their own. He announces that now is the time. Everyone should display the fire rain drops they have created. The instructor calls Ansal first. He asks him to demonstrate his technique. Ansal steps forward and shows his version. It is a spectacular display of fast and lethal sword movements. The instructor comments that Ansal's technique is very solid and precise, but it is filled with killing intent. He sends him back to his place. And then Seo calls Jinha. Jinha steps forward. And instead of performing Fire Rain's first technique, he shows a completely different technique. That technique looks exactly like that. It appears to be specifically designed to cut and defeat Ansal's technique. Ansal realizes that this is a direct warning, and it is targeting him. Now back at the clash, Ansal wonders which side Jinha's question refers to. What does you actually mean? What the one who shouted at him? That Ansal truly knows nothing. The one who understands he is not human. Who he was searching for. He becomes disheartened. Because he expected a little fun. Then he orders Ansal. From now on, don't bother him or I will kill you too. After threatening them, he leaves. Ansal thinks there must be a spy. And more is happening here than meets the eye, he guesses. He notes that not everyone here aims to become one of the 10 demon lords. He realizes that the opportunity to learn the 10 demonic sex arts is splendid. But the way this competition is run is terribly poor. It is terribly poor, he comes to a conclusion. He concludes that this splendid opportunity is actually a trap. He thinks it may be a trap to ensnare someone. He wonders whether there is a spy hidden among the trainees. But then he decides that it doesn't matter to him. Whether the opponent is a spy or a demonic martial artist, it makes no difference. In the end, everyone is an adversary to him, and the sun is beginning to set. And Ansal thinks that everything is about to start soon. Just nearby, a mouse gets caught in a trap. In the training hall, the instructor announces that today's training ends here. He believes that many trainees may have become bored while learning about loss. But he explains that even the most powerful masters who have fought countless battles still study loss. He also takes time to study laws and principles. He says that knowing martial arts is one thing. Doing it is another matter. He expresses his opinion. He says that this analysis of loss will be the starting point of their Muram world journey and wishes everyone good luck. Then suddenly a bell rings. The sound echoes throughout the hall. The instructor announces that the time has come. He gives an order to everyone. He orders them to go toward Rocky Mountain, which is located in the middle of Loke Island. All trainees gather on the mountain, where head instructor Hu Rang confirms their arrival. He confirms that everyone has arrived. Then head instructor Hu Rang announces the beginning of the third test. He explains the rules: the trainees must kill each other. This continues until only 10 people are left. He says that if you wish, you can hide or flee. But it will not always be possible to do so. As time passes, the area where the trainees can stay shrinks. It will gradually decrease, and anyone caught in the forbidden area will be killed by the killing demons. Ansal feels the intense killing intent emanating from those demons and understands the danger. These are extremely dangerous martial artists. A trainee asks if they are allowed to attack the killing demons. Rayan bursts out laughing loudly and says that seeing candidates with such lofty ambitions makes him happy. He confirms that yes, they can fight them, and if they manage to kill, they can also kill them. Then he mentions the shocking reward. Whoever kills a killing demon will instantly become one of the 10 demon lords. All trainees understand that killing a demon is even more difficult than killing everyone else. Rayan further reminds them that they can form alliances among themselves or betray each other and attack. Whatever is necessary, killing must be done, because this is the way to secure a place among the 10 demon lords. As soon as the test starts, the trainees scatter in different directions. Ansal immediately understands. He must move quickly, he knows. So far, he has attracted the attention of many trainees. And if he doesn't run immediately, a group attack could happen on him like last time. He decides that his first priority is to reach a safe place, and the safest place for him is Wandering Beast Pavilion. He sprints at full speed toward that familiar building. On the way, he feels something. The texture of the ground has changed. Then suddenly he senses someone coming. A wounded young man comes running. He cries out for help, he says. Someone is trying to kill him. He promises Ansal, if he helps, he will get a reward. Ansal thinks this is not a trick, but then he watches. Ansal confirms that the wound of the young man is truly real. Ansal feels the presence of 3 people. They are chasing him. He suspects that they might be a team. He doesn't want to get into a fight, but he realizes he must act. He knows that the presence of the wounded young man will reveal his location. In the final instant, Ansal grabs the young man and pulls him into a hidden pit that is nearby. The 3 pursuers arrive there. They are confused. They wonder where their prey went. They are certain he could not flee so quickly. Their leader speaks angrily. He declares that he will definitely kill the scoundrel and orders his comrades. He orders them to search, believing the target hasn't gone far. They move forward. Ansal and the young man emerge from the pit. The young man thanks Ansal. He realizes he survived because of Ansal. He thinks the pit was not just for hiding. Surely Master So had prepared it especially for him, he remembers. When he was in the pit, his wandering beast path senses spread far beyond their normal range. He could feel everything from the ground's vibrations to the clatter of footsteps and the clash of swords, as if he were seeing everything with his own eyes. Ansal realizes that this is the true wandering beast path, which works through vibration. And it is Master So who wanted to teach him. He then turns toward the young man. The young man states his name, Gomchuang of Blood Sex. He then asks Ansal for his name. Ansal ignores him. He sets off and Choyang follows right behind him. He says, wait a moment. Choyang explains that as soon as the third test began, he ran toward the forest. But the pursuers have been chasing him continuously. Choyang asks Ansal if he can join him. He argues that because Ansal helped and hid him, he seems trustworthy. Satisfied, he follows Ansal. Suddenly, the sounds of a fierce battle begin coming from afar. Ansal says to his companion, there's a big fight going on there, and they should find another route. Cryong is impressed by Ansal's ability to sense vibrations. He asks to be taught the Wandering Beast Path. Ansal agrees to teach him. Meanwhile, a lone fighter nearby is confronting many enemies. He swears that he will definitely avenge his comrades, even if he has to sell his soul. The word revenge echoes in Ansal's mind. He also feels a familiar, hateful energy emanating from that fighter. Cryong asks him what happened. Ansal suddenly says, our plan has changed. Now we will join the battle. Hearing this, Cryong is stunned. Suddenly, he is attacked from behind. He instantly cancels the strike. The attacker is stunned, and Cryong remains bewildered, wondering how Ansal stopped the forbidden ultimate cancellation technique. He wonders how Ansal stopped the forbidden ultimate cancellation technique. He asks, are you also a professional assassin? Ansal, with swift movement, deals a decisive blow to him. Ansal thinks he easily defeated the assassin. But if he hadn't learned the Wandering Beast Path, that cancellation technique would have been truly troublesome. There, Cryong sees the blood and screams in fear. Ansal thinks to himself, If he helps this fighter and eliminates these assassins, perhaps he will learn the true feeling of revenge. The assassins decide that the battle must end quickly. One of them says to the fighter, "I will end you quickly so that a sliver of respect remains for my comrades." But before he can launch the attack, Ansel steps in and stops his attack. The assassins think wildly, wondering why this person appeared out of nowhere and whether they have more allies. Then they decide that Ansel must also be killed. A fierce battle breaks out. Ansel and the avenging fighter together confront the assassins. Slowly, they eliminate them one by one together. Blood spreads everywhere. The avenging fighter finishes the last assassin with a single strike. He laughs, drenched in blood, and mutters. He declares that he has finally taken his revenge. Then he falls to the ground. Kryung asks, trembling, "Now everything is over." He then steps close to Ansel. He says that Ansel is very skilled, but he should never lower his guard. As soon as he says that, he suddenly attacks Ansel from a hidden path. Ansel easily blocks his attack. Kryung stays stunned and wonders, how did he manage to do that? Ansel replies in a cold voice. Because of Kryung, he couldn't ask the avenging fighter his question. Trembling with fear, Kryung asks, "When did you realize?" Ansel replies. "From the very beginning," he says. When they were hidden in the pit, he sensed that Kryung had concealed weapons beneath his clothes. The rigid motion of Kryung's spine made it obvious, Ansel says. He kept Kryung by his side to see when and how he would finally reveal his true intent. Observing how people deceive will be useful for him in the future. Kryung shouts in anger. He declares that this cannot happen because his act was perfect. Discouraged, he throws all his remaining hidden weapons at Ansel. But Ansel easily dodges every attack. Kryung thinks to himself. While chasing Ansel, he felt something strange. He also sensed something odd. Could Ansel already be reading his movements? Ansel easily evades every hidden weapon. Then he strikes Kryung hard. He says in a cold voice, "Even the finest hidden weapons are of no benefit if their secret is discovered early." Chi Yang, in his final attempt, lunges at Ansel with full force. Ansel quickly ends the fight and thinks. The battle was not easy, and without his prior knowledge of the hidden weapons, it could have been extremely dangerous. He looks at Chi Yang's body and notices. The same passion for living is reflected on his face, a trait seen in every dying person. Ansel leaves the area. He passes the corpses lying on the road, including the avenging fighter, S. He stops at the avenging fighter's corpse. He sees that it looks different. The fighter breathed his last with a smile. Ansel thinks about the feeling after taking revenge. Will I be able to smile like that when I get my revenge? He lifts the dead assassin's swords and moves forward. From a distance, a killing demon watches him. He wonders if Ansel did all this. The second demon says that Ansel defeated a professional assassin using only the basic technique of the Fire Rain Sword sect. He believes that Ansel definitely has talent. However, he adds that there are many other talented people here as well. And if he doesn't make further progress, he won't be able to survive on Hell Island. The next day, a group of trainees pursues Ansel. One of them attacks from a distance with a metallic web. Ansel evades one strike, but the weapon changes direction while in the air and hits him from behind. Ansel understands. He realizes that these people will not stop pursuing, and if he doesn't find an escape route, he will be killed this way. In the meantime, at the instructor's camp, the head instructor asks for an update. What is the situation so far? The other explains. Out of 86, 41 trainees are still alive. It is head instructor Hu Rang, who is surprised that after 3 days so many remain alive. He concludes that the survivors up to now must be quite skilled. Now the time has come. Their skills should truly be tested. He orders a map from his assistant. Somewhere on that island, a trainee is about to kill Ansel. Because the trainee had taken his sword, Ansel runs away again from his pursuers, and he thinks their weapons are of this kind. He believes fighting in the open field is not right for him. He devises a plan, which will work given his situation. Meanwhile, head instructor Hu Rang looks at the map. He decides to limit the combat zone. He gives an order. He orders that killing demons be released into the Fire Rain Sword sect area. Ansel moves straight toward the Fire Rain Sword sect building, and his pursuers enter the building right behind him. They think he might be hidden somewhere inside. One of them says mockingly to him. He says he is now trapped. Their leader thinks that no matter how fast he runs, he cannot escape now. But suddenly Ansel attacks from behind. The leader calls him a fool and thinks. He thinks this is a childish trick. To avoid being trapped, Ansel charges at them. While evading their weapons, he fights with great skill. He as a leader stays behind and thinks. He wonders how this scoundrel can read the paths of their sword techniques. Ansel fearlessly makes full use of the building's narrow corridors. He fights fiercely at his own pace. One of them realizes, in this crowded place, the strength of their attacks has become weak. But before that thought fully forms, Ansel kills him. In his final moments, he realizes He realizes that Ansal deliberately trapped them here, Ansal thinks. He thinks his enemies must make smaller attacks in this cramped space, which reduces their strength. From this, he also learns. He sees that they are not highly skilled warriors. Ansal draws a conclusion. If he separates them one by one, there is a chance to defeat them. Then a beast-like creature shouts and attacks him. But Ansal easily evades. Another pursuer attacks with a Vib weapon. But the Vib hits the wall and bounces off. And Ansal gets hit from behind. Ansal's balance gets messed up. And he falls to the ground. At that moment, another beast-type combatant sees an opportunity and shouts, "It's time to run now," and tries to take the others along. But suddenly he stops there. Someone stops him and asks in a cold tone, what those people are doing. Are they running? Ansal watches all this from a distance. In just a few moments, that mysterious fighter eliminates the remaining pursuers, and then turns towards Ansal and asks whether he is their leader. He praises Ansal's skill and then asks whether the sword technique he used earlier was the fire and sword. After that, he tells his name. Moonchang asks Ansal for his name. In a flashback, Moonchang is shouting at his comrades, asking whether they are running away. He thinks that fighting there is not a good idea. Moonchang gets angry at their cowardice, and in an instant he kills everyone. He thinks to himself that this is why. He hates working with such losers, who haven't even reached the advanced hall. Back in the present, just as Ansal is about to tell his name, Moonchang bursts out laughing loudly and says that he has no interest in knowing the name of the person who is about to die. Moonchang launches a terrifying attack on him. Ansal tries to stop it, but Ansal gets tangled in his sword, and Moonchang easily breaks his sword as he had heard. The advanced Hall of the Fire Rain Sword sect taught him only one defensive technique. Ansal is stunned and thinks, how does his enemy know about shining mysticism? Does he have any such information network? He doesn't even know about it. Moonchang attacks again and scolds him. That being distracted in the middle of the fight is foolish. The fight becomes more intense and Ansal realizes that his enemy destroys everything that comes his way. There is no benefit in fighting such a person in a confined space. Ansal creates a little distance. Moonchang says, showing disappointment, that with his skill he cannot match him. Then he attacks with full force using his chain weapon. He traps Ansal in a net from all sides. That perhaps this is his last attempt, and he believes that a defensive technique like shining mysticism will not be able to save him. But he is left stunned when he sees that Ansal is still standing. Then Ansal frees himself from the web created by Moonchang. Moonchang swears while laughing that he will kill him soon. Ansal assesses the situation and understands. He can block attacks with shining mysticism, but it doesn't have enough power to completely stop the enemy. Then he remembers his training, and he realizes that he needs only one thing right now, a destructive power that can even tear through this. Ansal concentrates all his energy, and then delivers a massive strike, which completely startled Moonchang. His defense gets broken, and that is it, the battle ends. After the fight ends, Ansal stands half-dazed and remembers how he countered Moonchang's attack with a massive energy explosion. It was that same technique, unparalleled lightning and thunder, a destructive power that completely annihilated his enemy. Ansal thinks that this technique truly has the same power the instructor described. But then blood starts coming out of his mouth, and he realizes that this technique is far more advanced than his current capability, and he cannot use it repeatedly. Ansal sighs in relief that he has won the battle, but he feels that the battle has become too long and the restricted zones are about to change. He must move forward immediately. Then he suddenly feels someone's presence. He becomes furious. A killing demon appears standing in front of him. Ansal wonders why this demon is here. Did this area become a restricted zone during the fight? He draws that conclusion, so Ansal assumes he can leave. But as soon as he tries to pass by it, the demon suddenly attacks from behind with lightning-like speed. Ansal thinks that if he doesn't escape, his neck will be cut right there. In the final moment, he uses the Wandering Beast path to escape. He realizes that if this technique hadn't existed, he would have died, because when the demon struck, he didn't even sense its presence. Now Ansal is fully prepared to face it. He thinks he shouldn't mistake his enemy's calm for deception, because as soon as he moves even slightly, the demon will attack. At that moment, he remembers a lesson taught by Sabu. When a hunter pursues his prey, the prey is not easily caught. Even if the hunter is fast, it's because the prey often runs in a zigzag pattern. But real apex predators always catch the prey because they strike at the precise moment. Ansal thinks about how to fight such an enemy. Then he remembers the second part of the lesson. If the predator attacks with timing, then the solution is make your movements completely unpredictable. He makes a plan. First, he performs a predictable zigzag movement. Then, using the Wandering Beast path, he dodges the demon's attacks. And at the end, he suddenly makes an unexpected move, which creates an opening in the enemy's defense. But when he does, he is shocked. The demon stands in front of him for a few moments. and he feels that it's too late now, and his end will come. But then he sees that the demon stops the attack. Ansel keeps thinking why. Had he unknowingly crossed the boundary of the restricted zone? Then he remembers the fight, and he realizes that he had put his full strength into it. But he couldn't manage even a single opening in the enemy's defense. He accepts that this is the level of a true master. And he feels like a frog who has no notion of the enormity of the real world and the powerful people that exist there. Ansel decides that the level of martial arts among killing demons is so high that it cannot even be measured, and his grandfather's killer would undeniably be of that same level. Now his determination becomes even stronger. If he has to take his revenge, then he must rise above even this mastery. Suddenly, another figure appears before him and calls him by his full name. He is the family's Ansel, says the man. He says he has been searching for him for a long time and has heard. He says that Ansel has learned the wandering beast path. Ansel thinks the stranger is also speaking in the same way. Like the rest, it means that information about him has already spread. The stranger begins to state his name, but then he stops sarcastically and says that a dying person does not need to know a name, and at that moment he suddenly attacks. Ansel easily dodges his strike. The stranger, impressed, says that Ansel sensed the direction of his attack with his 20 senses. Then he says that he is certain that Ansel will definitely become one of the 10 demon lords in the future, and that is why, even now when he is just a demon seed, it is necessary to finish. It is necessary to finish, Ansel notices. He notices that the man's energy flow has suddenly changed completely, and Ansel remembers. Not everyone on this hell island came with the ambition to become one of the 10 demon lords. He thinks, could this man also be one of them? But then he doesn't let his mind wander and focuses entirely on the battle. During the clash of swords, Ansel gets a strange feeling. A strange energy flow pulls him toward it. He remembers a lesson he learned with his grandfather. His grandfather showed him a corpse killed by the Habai clan's 5 cutting tiger blades technique. No wound was visible from the outside, but all the bones inside were shattered. Grandfather said that this is the hallmark of the technique. With each strike, Kai is poured into the enemy's body, and the bones are broken from within. Currently, Ansel suddenly shouts. He says that this is the technique. It is the 5 cutting tiger blades of the Habai clan. His opponent is startled. Ansel has recognized his style. Then Ansel remembers another point his grandfather said. The second characteristic of this technique is powerful absorption. It pulls everything toward it like a vortex. In each strike, it also brings the opponent's sword under its control. Grandfather also explained that the Habai clan fights like a tiger. First, it twists the opponent's sword and then swallows it completely. At that time, the young Ansel asked whether this clan is the strongest. Grandfather replied that this is the double-edged sword absorption technique. Even though it is deceptive, but it forces the user. He fights at very close range. Ansel makes a decision now. He decides to use this absorption technique and redirect the enemy's sword toward him. His opponent, Feng Ake of the Habai Fang clan, says seriously. He vows to fight with all his might and swearing by his clan to erase a demon seed like Ansel. When Feng Ake attacks, Ansel surprises him by thrusting his sword into the ground. Feng Ake is left stunned by this unexpected move. Ansel uses the sword as a pivot point and kicks Feng Ake hard. The kick throws him off balance. Ansel smiles to himself. His plan is working. Feng Ake shouts in anger. He accuses Ansel of using dirty tricks, and Ansel thinks the trick worked but caused little damage. That's clear, his opponent has been training for years. But now he knows how to defeat him. Ansel remembers another lesson from his master. Always let the enemy strike first. Real speed isn't about how fast you are, but about being faster than them in that fraction of a second during engagement. Ansel decides to use his absorption technique against his opponent and turn it into a speed weapon. Feng Ake attacks again, but this time Ansel does not resist the pulling force but goes along with it. And using that same momentum, he makes his sword even sharper. Then at the last moment, he changes the direction of the strike and hits Feng Ake straight on. Feng Ake goes into a state of shock. Did Ansel really reverse his absorption technique against him? That's impossible. His technique is so powerful that it can pull a stone from a distance. Even the most masterful swordsman can barely use this power correctly. That a boy so small could do such a thing. And then he attacks in the same manner. But Ansel thinks to himself, there's no advantage in this because the stronger the absorption, the sharper his sword will become. Feng shouts with each surge of anger. Finally, he wonders how long this maneuver will last. Ansel suddenly notices that his opponent is no longer using the energy absorption technique. Feng Ake says with a cold smile, he doesn't even need it to defeat someone like you. He lunges straight with a direct attack without any trick. Ansel thinks to himself, this is the moment he had been waiting for. Ansel takes a deep breath and activates the first fire rain sword technique, Shiny Mysticism. This time, he puts all his strength into a massive counterattack. right at the moment when Feng Ake had dropped his guard. His attack lands directly on Feng Ake. The finishing blow drops Feng Ake to his knees. Ron asks, "Was this the shiny mysticism technique?" Ansel replies in a calm voice, "Yes, this is indeed a dangerous claim." It drops Feng Ake to his knees. And yes, he asks the queen. He wonders whether that was the same shiny mysticism technique. And Ansel confirms it, he also mentions this. That move was quite dangerous, Ansel thinks. In order to turn the defensive shining mysticism technique's sole deadly move into a full attack, he had to deliberately redirect all his other attacks toward himself. Feng Ake is present, he tells Ansel. He never even thought that anyone could interpret this technique in such a way. He then asks Ansel. He wonders whether he will simply go away like that. Ansel replies that he is not part of Feng Ake's revenge. Feng Ake finds this quite interesting and wonders. He ponders how a person like Ansel could exist in a demonic setting. Ansel hopes. He hopes those people never meet again and then leaves. Feng Ake falls because of his injuries. Then another figure stands behind him. Feng Ake asks him, did he come to kill him? A masked killing demon addresses Feng Ake saying. He says that even though he was part of the Orthodox set, he proved to be quite useful, and his death is a matter of regret. Feng Ake understands. He realizes they knew from the beginning that he was a spy. The demon says that he had underestimated the Devil's Palace. He then says goodbye and kills him. On the other side of the island, a trainee runs at full speed to save his life. We see Jinha extracting hidden weapons from his body one by one. Then he stands injured and half-dazed. A group appears in front of him, and their leader says that his luck is bad. He mocks him, asking if he really thinks he can survive after being poisoned with Hellish Blood Fort's toxin. He says that without an antidote, his survival is impossible. Jinha curses his misfortune, thinking he didn't know that such an organized hidden weapon and poison team was also here. The opponents notice that Jinha holds his sword in his left hand and ask if he intends to fight with it. The leader says that however talented he is a right-hander. The opponent suddenly retreats. One cannot become an expert overnight. He should surrender. Then everyone attacks him together. But Jinha stops them with surprising skill. However, his hand gets injured. He discovers another poison needle has lodged in him. And if he doesn't receive an antidote within 15 minutes, his end is certain. Surrounded and injured, Jinha starts thinking about surrendering. Then suddenly he hears a scream. And they fall one by one, screaming while asking, who is attacking them? In the final moment, Ansel appears. And with swift and decisive movements, Ansel saves Jinha from that ambush. He kills all the attackers, and their corpses remain scattered on the ground. Ansel stands amid the carnage, and Jinha, stepping back cautiously, tells him to stop. He assures him that he has no bad intentions. He searches the body of one of the attackers, and he finds a vial. He realizes that this is the antidote. He thinks that with this antidote, he will be able to handle the other members of the Hellish Blood Fort more easily. As soon as Ansel turns and starts to leave, then he tells him to stop, and he asks what he needs. He tells him that he has already been poisoned, and he has only 10 minutes left. Otherwise, the poison will spread throughout his body. Ansel says coldly that he is misunderstanding. He has come here to kill everyone. He continues, adding that there is only one reason for him not to kill them. He does not feel the need to kill him himself. Jinha believes that if Ansel leaves her, she will die. And in the end, she is just another competitor for him. Finally, out of compulsion, she tells him that if he gives her the antidote, she will be ready to work with him. Ansel asks why she would do that. Jinha explains that now only 20 people remain, and apart from them, everyone else belongs to a group. She says that no matter how strong Ansel is, he cannot face everyone alone. She also adds that if he works with her, she can give him information about the martial arts and movements of the other groups. And she swears that if he saves her life, she will never beat him. Ansel thinks about the proposal. After observing her, he decides that although she appears proud and independent, she does not seem deceitful. He asks her for the terms of the agreement. Jinha suggests that they keep working together until only the two of them remain, and both swear not to beat each other. After a short pause, Ansel throws the antidote to Jinha and says thank you. Suddenly, Ansel hears a strange sound and wonders if a new restricted area has been created. He tells her that they must leave, but she says she doesn't think this is a restricted area. Ansel tells her to think. Most of the island is already restricted. So at this moment, the sudden arrival of another restricted zone means that the remaining contestants are moving in this direction. In fact, many other groups of trainees start appearing there. They surround both of them. It is now too late to escape. One of the newcomers catches his attention. He feels this man is different from the others. A trainee suggests everyone should first kill Ansel and Jinha together. Another trainee recognizes them. Ansel, who has learned the Wandering Beast path, and Jinha, whose sword skills and investigation cannot be underestimated. The leader of the opposing group says they now know everything about Ansel and Jinha. and he wonders why the two did not form a team. Ansal now remembers the antidote powder vial, and Jinha tells him she will bluff with hellish blood fortis poison. This gives them a chance. Jinha throws the powder into the air, and the opponents panic, thinking it is a lethal toxin. Seizing the opportunity, Ansal and Jinha escape. One opponent realizes the powder is not real poison, and they have been deceived. Their leader orders a pursuit. Jinha thinks the powder creates thick smoke, enough to deceive the eyes. Someone understands that the open area is unsuitable for them. They should head toward the rock formations with small caves. Ansal asks for guidance. I wonder if she is also thinking the same. What he is thinking? Yes, they should fight in a cave. Ansal finds one. A cramped entrance leads to a cave with a long passage, and he takes her there. She looks at Jinha. He had already planned all this and couldn't believe that he had just learned the Wandering Beast path. Both of them run at full speed toward the rocky area. When she reaches there, she notices the mist. A strange mist has spread. It was not there before, and even Ansal believes it. There is something wrong here. A killing demon appears between them. They in shock understand. This is a killing demon. This place is a restricted area, Ansal observes. These demons are just watching them. He draws a conclusion. The instructors deliberately made this place a restricted area because both of them were moving towards here. Jinha asks what they should do now. Ansal replies, as long as they do not cross the border, the demons will not attack them. Ansal also adds, if they must fight, this place is not bad. Fighting with the restricted area on one's back is just like that. Like fighting while leaning against a wall in a cave. Jinha follows his advice and says that they have no other option, and both prepare to fight. At that moment, the group chasing them arrives, and their leader, teasing, asks if their chase has now ended. Both teams stand face to face. Meanwhile, from behind, the killing demons silently watch them. A trainee complains that Ansal and Jinha have been bothering him a lot, and he orders everyone to attack together without wasting any more time. Then, in a resonant voice, head instructor Hu Rain declares that the decisive moment has arrived. The upcoming battle will determine the sole champion of Devil's Palace. As soon as his words end, it feels like the signal to start has been given. The attackers crash onto Ansal and Jinha together like a roaring wave. Immediately, a fierce and chaotic battle erupts. Swords clash, screams echo. In this turmoil, an attacker gets a chance, and he throws a set of poison-hidden weapons at Ansal. But because of his vigilance, Ansal leans at the last moment and evades them. They whistled as they passed him and sank into the ground. Both Ansal and Jinha fight with extraordinary courage and brutality. Especially Jinha, with unbelievable lightness and agility, moved among the enemies like a deadly butterfly dancing amid fire, and with his precise swordsmanship, he took them down one by one. During this, a powerful attacker suddenly leaps from the crowd and attacks. Taking advantage of the situation, Jinha sees the attack in the last second, and he stops it with his sword. But due to the heavy force of the impact, he slips a few steps back, and his hand starts trembling. As soon as they regain balance, Ansal and Jinha stand back to back. Like an impenetrable fortress, they face the increasing number of enemies from all sides. And the siege is tightening. Amid this tremendous chaos and non-stop battle, a deep wound strikes Jinha's shoulder. As blood flows, he becomes despondent, and he wonders, is this truly his inevitable end? He feels that he has poured all his strength. He left no stone unturned, therefore he has no regrets on his path. But the thought of death still creates hesitation in his heart, which makes his courage begin to wane. Ansal immediately realizes the danger. He realizes that despair is taking up residence in his heart. Then in his memories, his grandfather's gentle, warm hand emerges. It once lovingly rested on his head. Then that image suddenly transforms into a mutilated face smeared with blood. It was the moment he took his last breath in Ansal's arms. This memory kindles a new fire within Ansal. Like an erupting volcano, he swears in the depths of his mind. He swears that he cannot die here. He will not die until he has completed his revenge. This blazing, resolute Ansal leaps back into the heart of the battle. He appears more powerful than before. He advances, cutting through the enemy ranks with a rapid and relentless barrage of blows. He moves like a vortex of iron and death. Then at lightning speed, he smashes into those attackers. His opponents haven't even realized what suddenly changed. One of the opponents curses badly upon seeing Ansal. He screams upon witnessing his unstoppable brutality. He declares that he is not a human but a demon. The rest of the people, trembling with fear, watch their comrades fall, and they wonder what kind of terrifying sword art this is. The group's leader quickly understands that Ansal is the biggest threat to their entire plan. He shouts with all his might, commanding his people that everyone else should forget everything and focus only on him. Knock him down first at any cost. In that decisive moment, all eyes and swords are fixed upon him. Ansal remembers the teaching from his master Sabu. Don't think, trust your instincts. Go as your senses tell you. In that clarity, he realizes he has grasped the true essence of his master's sword art. With full confidence, Ansel unleashes Sabu's practical martial arts. He was moving among opponents like a ghost that no one could track anymore. He was eliminating them one by one with lethal precision. All around, only screams of pain and fallen bodies could be seen. It was as if the whole battlefield turned into an image of tragedy. Ansel took a breath and pondered the effectiveness of Sabu's martial arts. Then the attacker's leader jumps from a blind spot and attacks him. Taking advantage of his momentary carelessness with a devastating punch, Ansel feels the lethal thud of that punch. And without thinking, instinctively, he stops the punch with his sword at the last split second. Now Ansel and the group leader are face to face. The leader says in a cold voice, "The punch was so powerful that Ansel's sword, which had endured every blow so far. This time it begins to crack like a delicate twig." With the force of that massive strike, Ansel is flung into the air and falls far away. And he crashes hard onto the ground. Jinha shouts from afar, calling his name. An attacker says to him in a cold joke. He says that it's already too late. Ansel couldn't escape that blow at all. He is now dead. Jinha screams with all his strength. He shouts Ansel, "Get up carefully." She warns that the real danger has now begun. In a panicked voice, she gives a warning that Ansel has fallen straight into the forbidden zone, a place where being there is prohibited for anyone. In front of the wounded and almost immobile Ansel, the killing demon slowly steps forward like the knock of death. He comes like the Grim Reaper about to take his prey's last breath and looks up at Ansel. For the final strike, head instructor Hu Rang roars loudly and gives the order. Everyone stop the fight immediately. At the sound of his voice, killing demon's hand stops a few inches before Ansel's face. In that breath-stopping moment, Master Sabu appears as if materialized from the air. His cold sword directly embeds itself into killing demon's neck. And he stops his disciple's death in that very instant. Stunned, Ansel looks up, and he merely whispers his master's name softly. Then his consciousness slowly fades away, and he loses consciousness from deep exhaustion and pain. He feels that this terrifying test is finally over. The head instructor Hu Rang dashes toward them at extreme speed. And in anger and panic, he shouts at his men, "Hurry, bring Dr. Matt right away, before the boy dies. This red talent will be lost." One of his assistants objects to this sudden decision by the instructor. How can the third stage be abruptly cancelled like this? But the head instructor says firmly that he is ready to take full responsibility for this decision. In front of everyone, the instructor is filled with joy inside. He finally found the person he had been searching for all this time. A unique individual whose reflexes are extraordinary, whose killing intent is absolutely pure, and whose mind does not waver even in the darkest circumstances. The unconscious Ansel is being taken away. The instructor looks at him and sees him as an uncut, unrefined gem. He is a rare and perfectly balanced talent, worthy of becoming one of the 10 true demon disciples selected for the next generation. Later, in a hall of the Devil's Palace, a chief elder questions head instructor Hu Rang about his reckless decision. An assistant reminds him that Master Byung Wing's original plan called for only 12 finalists. 10 disciples for demon sex and the other 2 as their spies, the eyes and ears. The elder sternly scolds the instructor, saying the penalty for completing the test with 2 extra participants will be severe. But the instructor confidently replies that he is fully prepared for it. He says he will have no regrets about his decision. The elder takes a deep breath and expresses his concern. The 10 demonic sex candidates have arrived to choose their disciples. What kind of reaction will they give to this? But the instructor, reassuring him, says that none of them has a more expert eye for recognizing true talent than he does. Ansel opens his eyes after a while and finds himself on a comfortable bed, in a room he has never seen before. He is disoriented. He wonders how he got here. He can guess from the strong scent of medicinal herbs. He realizes he is in a medical wing or a place for treating the wounded. He examines his body and finds that all his injuries have completely healed, both external wounds and the deep internal damage caused by excessive use of advanced sword arts. Ansel is stunned by the doctor's skill at the Devil's Palace. It is beyond his imagination, almost like a miracle. Ansel gently gets down from the bed and opens the door. He finds himself in a long, quiet corridor. A servant who is waiting for him greets him with respect, calling him young master. He politely asks him to follow. The servant takes him through a massive, magnificent hall, where the remaining survivors of the blood test are seated. Ansel, while looking at the grand view outside through a large circular window, asks what place this is. The servant explains that they are in the central building of Hell Island. Ansel realizes that this is the place, which he had never been able to explore on the island, and which until now had been completely shrouded in mystery. Another servant, smiling, asks if he would like something to eat. He may have whatever he wishes prepared. Finally, all that Ansel has endured. He deserves anything after that. Thinking a bit, Ansel simply asks for 2 bowls of noodles, a simple meal that reminds him of his past. The steaming hot noodles are served within moments. Seeing them, Ansel spends time with his grandfather. The happy war moments come to mind. The two of them sit together and joyfully eat noodles. Lost in his memories, Ansel suddenly realizes that she is sitting right across from him at that very table. Silently watching him, Ansel asks Jinha, why is she sitting with him without being invited? After a brief silence, Jinha finally speaks. She thanks Ansel for saving her life in battle. That if Ansel hadn't intervened in the final battle, she would have been a lost soul wandering the underworld until now, because she was truly on the brink of death. Ansel gets a little confused by her sudden thanks. He says that he only removed the enemies that were standing in his way. Jinha continues explaining. According to the strict rules, only 12 people could survive after the third stage. But to save Ansel from dying at the hands of Killing Demon, the head instructor suddenly halted the test. And because of that, 14 people survived. In her view, because of that, she is still alive today. Directly because of Ansel, and for this special reason, she wanted to sit opposite him and thank him. However, she believes that speaking like this emotionally is not at all in her nature. Then she gives him another piece of information. 4 whole days have passed. Since she fainted, Ansel is startled. Because she thought only a single day had passed, she tells him. She says he was very lucky that the mad doctor was present on the island at that time. She tells him the story of that legendary doctor. He was called Divine. He was considered the greatest doctor in the world. But he went insane because he could not save the woman he loved. Still, this is just a rumor. Even in his madness, the legendary doctor can save anyone. No matter how severe the injury, as long as the patient has even a single breath left, he can heal them. Ansel realizes that it was that legendary doctor who pulled him back from the jaws of death. Thinking this, he closes his eyes. He wishes his grandfather had also gotten a chance to meet that doctor. Jinha wants to give him one final, crucial piece of information as a former companion. She reveals a dangerous secret, saying, the killing demons they faced in the test were not ordinary guards, but experienced masters sent by the 10 demonic sects to assess them. Ansel understands why their martial arts were so dangerous and of such a high level. Then he asks Jinha whether she knows. Why did the head instructor save me? Jinha asks. She admits that this very question also troubles her. Because the instructor was unusually steadfast that Ansel would become one of the 10 demon disciples. She asks whether Ansel's client is somehow linked to the instructor, or whether they have ever met. But Ansel flatly refuses. None of this is true. Jinha gets even more tangled and tells him. The head instructor was given a severe punishment for breaking the rules. He was stripped of his position and immediately ordered to return to the Devil's Palace. Ansel, after hearing all this, becomes even more upset and remains stunned. Why would a stranger risk his job, his future, and even his life for him? While he knew that he would be punished. Suddenly, a loud bell rang throughout the area. Their conversation was cut short. Jinho announces that time is up. This is the signal for all remaining people on Hell Island to gather. From the bell, Jinha realizes it can mean only one thing. The 10 demonic sects leaders and the envoys have finally arrived to select their disciples. All 14 survivors gather in the massive hall at the heart of Hell Island. The Unsoul also stands among them. The odd silence spreading through the hall unsettles him. Despite the many leaders, not a single footstep is heard. As if they were walking on air. Lost in this confusion, he sees a leader turn and begin to watch the survivors' faces closely. He points toward one of the trainees. And in a firm voice he says, "You there." That man calls himself Bolsa. He, the deputy leader of the Death Spirit set, tells Yu Moho to come forward. Bolsa then asks him, "Will you become the successor of the Death Spirit set?" Yu Moho says anxiously. He says he has spent his entire life learning only saber arts. He has never even touched a spear. Bolsa says in a calm voice. It doesn't matter, he explains. Moho was born with perfect conditions to master the Death Spirit spear. His body, his energy, and his talent were all made for the spear. But he mistakenly chose the saber. That's why he never reached true heights. Bolsa tells him that if he understands. So go with him, he shakes his head with a crooked mouth. He walks behind. After that, another leader comes forward. An old man with a white beard wearing a very unique hat. He has taken the position himself. The teacher of 10,000 poisons and Hellish Blood Star declares him as deputy master. The other trainees are scared just by his name. His reputation in dangerous poison arts is such that everyone whispers. He can end all life around him with a single gesture. Jakyahu extends his hand and makes a sound. He asks Seo Jinha. He asks whether she will become the successor of Hellish Blood Star. She freezes in shock. Memories of her childhood flash in her mind. She earned the nickname Sword Prodigy by defeating her companions with a wooden sword. Now he invites her to join the sect that creates poison-human hybrids. Jakyahu says, "What is the most terrifying poison in the world?" He answers, "A venomous heart," and then explains. He also knows about Jinha's past actions. Before the third stage, he used a girl in the main castle's martial arts hall to eliminate all the trainees. When the plan failed, Jinha killed the girl and erased the evidence. Jinha shouts in anger. She reveals that the same girl had previously tried to kill her and was trapping her. She claims the accusation that she was cleaning up the mess is completely false and absurd. Jacyahu stops her in the middle. He says this in a calm voice. He praises her willingness to kill countless people without hesitation to achieve a goal. He calls this an excellent trait for their poison arts. He finds it admirable and then explains further. Even though she feels very talented with a sword, she is not yet at a level to dominate the martial arts world. He says only the chosen can command the Marma with a sword. He tells her that her true capability lies not in the sword but in poison. The word chosen resonates in her mind. She glances stealthily toward Ansal, recalling a memory. She claims she only began learning the sword after appearing in the 10 Demon Disabilities test. Nevertheless, she had witnessed swordsmanship in battle with her own eyes. That level had taken her 10 years to attain on her own. She now understands who the real chosen one of the sword is. At that moment, she makes her decision. She steps forward and announces she is ready to join Hellish Bloodstar. Jacyahu smiles and tells her to come with him. As soon as they leave, another leader in a red robe steps forward. He announces that now it is his sect's turn. He introduces himself. When his name is heard, the trainees' excitement rises. He is called the Sword Demon. As the disciple of the former sect leader and the current #1 swordsman, he fills the trainees with enthusiasm. Who will be chosen, who will? Vikgan points directly at Ansal. He mentions Ansal's name. He says that he has heard much about him. Instructor Jevian and Elder Dan also highly praise him. He adds that Ansal has inherited Instructor Chun's ultimate art. Ansal confirms this. Vikgan, impressed, says he has great expectations for Ansal. The depth of Ansal's sword arts is infinite. He tells him that he will have to work hard. He turns and leaves. But then a flicker of hesitation appears in Ansal's eyes. He remembers Master Sao. Suddenly he shouts loudly, "I will not join the Hugh Sword Sect." Silence spreads throughout the hall. Vikgan stops, his eyes widening. His eyes widen. What did you just say? A violent red aura bursts from his body, roaring. Ansal has the courage to refuse the successor position in his sect. Ansal nearly collapses under that terrible pressure. And he can barely speak. He had heard that some might decline the offer. Vikgan asks with cold eyes, "So where do you want to go then?" Ansal replies. In the Nangia Pavilion Hall, a sword-like silence spreads again. Vikgan becomes angry. He repeats the name with contempt. The Nangia Pavilion's red aura flares and roars. He shouts, "You dare insult my sect by choosing such a broken, fallen sect." Ansal feels that this pressure will tear his body apart. He now understands the demonic path's #1, the power of a demon. At that instant, someone steps forward and stands before Ansal. While restraining the aura of Vikgan, he becomes even more agitated. How can a petty secret hall master have the audacity to block my path? The man gently places his hand on his sword. The trainees hold their breath in shock. Is this man really contemplating drawing his sword in front of the sword demon? Ansal instantly recognizes him. He whispers, "Master Salvik." Gon laughs sarcastically. "Because you are Instructor Jevin's friend, you think you can stand equal to me." An elder watches the situation anxiously. He thinks that if a fight breaks out here, the remaining candidates might be torn to pieces. Tension is about to reach its peak. All muscles are tense. Sabu shifts slightly. Then a new voice stops everyone. Another leader steps forward with a calm smile. With golden hair, Dan Chong, standing still and calm, places his hand on Vikgan's sword and speaks. That's enough. Everyone feels uneasy. He introduces himself. Dan Chong, Deputy Master of the Nangia Pavilion. Dan Chong requests that Vikgan forgive him this time. The other elders also agree. One of them says, laughing, "Well, someone had to be chosen for the Nangia Pavilion." Vikgan gives a sharp look at Ansal and Master Sao for the last time. Before leaving, he warns Dan Chong, "Take Ansal quickly, before my sword draws itself." Dan Chong bows politely and thanks him. Then smiling, he says to Ansal and Sao. Ansal thinks about the aura he just felt. He had just felt it. It was a massive killing intent directly aimed at him. He realizes this. If Dan Chong and Sao hadn't intervened, Vikgan would have killed him. The three walk together. Master Sao says to Ansal, "Your skills have increased far beyond last time." Ansal laughs and says, "All of this is a result of learning the beast path." Dan Chong gives him a light pat on the head. He says he did not expect Ansal to choose the Nangia Pavilion. But he smiles, calling him a good boy. Ansal says he feels the Nangia Pavilion path suits him in many ways. After a while, Dan Chong says, Ansal stands stunned. He had expected a quiet, solemn, ancient-like place. But in front is a bustling market with crowded streets and a crowd of people. Dan Chong asks laughingly, "Did you get startled?" he asks, then explains. He explains that the pavilion controls the surrounding local markets. But its own principle is self-reliance and self-sufficiency. Ansal notices that everyone around looks elderly. He asks whether there are other disciples his age in the pavilion. Dan Chong makes a light joke. Many young disciples came before, but most died in training or fled in fear. Ansal understands the situation. Dan Chong points to a spot and says, "Your residence starts here," he says. He adds that if any repairs are needed, he can speak with Master Gall. Dan Chong and Sao prepare to leave. Dan Chong calls out, "I'm leaving." Sao gives farewell to Ansal. "Continue your training," Sao says. Ansal anxiously asks, "Will I not stay here?" Dan Chong explains, "You won't stay here." He says Sao is the master of the secret hall. Even though he has protected Ansal, he doesn't have the authority to confront someone like the Sword Demon. He will have to pay the price for this step. Ansal asks anxiously, "What does pay the price mean?" he asks. Is that why he's leaving? He wonders. Sao smiles and says, "Don't panic so much, it's just a light punishment. It won't take long." Then he gives Ansal a light pat on the back from behind. "Don't have the audacity to slack off training when I'm not around. I will always keep watching." Ansal watches them depart. Ansal softly says, "Take care." After everyone departs, Dan Chong turns toward Ansal. He calls him by his full name, Bohan Ansal. Dan Chong says, "You cannot be considered a disciple of the Nangia Pavilion," and Ansal is bewildered. Dan Chong explains that even though Ansal was selected as one of the 10 demon disciples, he is not yet an official disciple of the Nangia Pavilion. He says this in a serious tone. "Weak people do not become disciples of our pavilion," Ansal asks. "Does that mean that if he becomes powerful, he can become a disciple without any extra formalities?" Dan Chong laughs and says, "Absolutely, we have no interest in useless formalities." He further explains that in our pavilion, every disciple is the pavilion. There is no need for titles nor loyalty, only strength matters. The stronger one is the true disciple. He says that Ansal should drop caring about everything else and focus solely on mastering martial arts. He tells him to become so strong that the pavilion itself will call him a disciple. Dan Chong says that everyone in the pavilion is his own teacher. But with a mischievous smile, he adds that whether they will teach you or not is uncertain. These teachers will decide. The next day, Ansal heads out toward Chengpai. Ansal was climbing the mountain. He was exhausted for half a week. He thought that just a little more and the summit would be within reach. He remembers Dan Chong's words. He recalls that Dan Chong said yesterday there is a master at the summit who will teach him the ultimate internal energy cultivation method. When Ansal reaches the summit, a huge bald man with scar marks all over his body greets him and asks if he is the chosen disciple of the Nangia Pavilion. Ansal shakes his head in bewilderment. The master says that Deputy Master Dan Chong told him Ansal has come to learn internal energy cultivation. But he asks, confused, "You have already mastered some technique. Then why do you want to learn more?" Ansal is completely stunned. He cannot understand anything. The master shouts at him, "Don't you feel the true energy rising from your body? It seems to have been systematically built since childhood." Ansal hurriedly says that he has spent his whole life living like an undertaker. He never learned any internal energy method. The master approaches him and says, "Then one of the two statements is true. Either you are the biggest liar in this world, or you learned it while you were asleep." Ansal emphatically says that he is not lying. The master proposes a test, whether destroying all his energy would be a problem for him. The nervousness is clearly visible. Nevertheless, Ansal replies, "Yes, I have no objection." The master holds his hand, checks his energy, and discovers something. Ansal's entire body is filled with true energy. But no circulation of energy occurs at all. The master realizes this. Ansal has been blindly accumulating energy in a low-density state for years without ever circulating it. He falls into thought. This must be impossible. Ansal groans in pain. And the master, angry, grabs him and yells, "Whose deed is this? Who taught you to throw energy like that?" But Ansal grew more uneasy, staring ahead yet unable to answer. After asking the question, he pulls Ansal even closer. Confused, Ansal looks at him. He can't understand what the master wants to say. Leaving him aside, the master watches him closely for a few moments. Then he asks whether anyone has ever taught him how to calm the mind, or how to breathe properly. He says his grandfather once taught him a breathing technique. The man's eyes narrow. The doubt deepens. He says, "Show me." Closing his eyes, he studies his breathing. He exhales slowly. He inhales through his mouth again to clear his thoughts. He slows his breathing, steadies himself, then changes. Inhale through the nose, exhale through the mouth. As soon as the rhythm is set, a light energy begins to gather at his core. The master's gaze sharpens. He continues to watch. He cannot believe what he is seeing. Ansal was circulating energy while standing, which should be impossible for an untrained person. Meaning he can channel energy in any position. And he can't even think of that technique and immediately says it to stop it. Ansal opens his eyes. The man with his hands bound looks at him attentively and asks. He asks whether it was indeed his grandfather who taught him this. Ansal nods without hesitation. He then says that when he used to play corpse sis with his grandfather, the old man taught him this breathing technique. He says that this is the best way to breathe inside a coffin. The man becomes completely stunned. Then he places his hand on Ansol's dentition. Understanding settles on his face. What Ansol just did was not a simple breathing exercise. It was the real trick, a method to gather in the dentition. A complete circulation and breathing practice that is far superior to any ordinary internal technique. He turns back towards Ansol. He says that his dentition already contains 10 years of internal energy accumulated. Ansol freezes right there. His gaze shifts towards his own stomach. It's hard to believe. After a long pause, the man asks Ansol what his grandfather's name is. Panicking, Ansol answers. The man repeats the name slowly, thinking that a dangerous swordsman's image rises in his mind. While thinking, an image of a dangerous swordsman emerges in his mind. In the whole world, that name belongs to only one man. Finally, he speaks. In a slow and firm voice, the man says, the strongest swordsman of the demon path worldwide and former vice master of the demon palace, Bijang Jiang. Ansol bows his head. Hearing the words, memories of his soft-hearted grandfather float in his eyes. It is hard to believe that the same person was the vice master of the demon palace. He shakes his head, thinking it could not be true. How could such a man have become a vice master? The man standing opposite silently continues to watch him, thinking. After a while, he says that this breathing technique is actually a Shaolin method. Upon hearing this, Ansol shivers. If this is Shaolin, then it comes from the Orthodox marble faction. That means his grandfather was an Orthodox martial master. And if this truth comes out, the demon palace will collapse. He thinks about the fear of losing his rank among the 10 demon masters, or something even worse. The man can't read Ansol's thoughts. His face is calm yet deep. Then suddenly he smiles, and says he has no doubt about Ansol's words. The intelligence of the demonic palace is so strong that they must have done a background check, and if they didn't find this breathing method, it would be fine. He points at Ansol and says he will teach him, because he is keeping the promise he made to the Wandering Beast Pavilion. He makes it clear that he doesn't care whether this method is orthodox or demonic. Then he turns and gives a cold warning. If Ansol ever teaches even a single character of this technique to anyone, he will kill both Ansol and everyone connected to him. Ansol clears his throat. He bows with his fists joined, completely silently. The man stops, he squints his eyes and looks back, then he walks away. While walking away, he turns one last time and says, "My name is Jiang." Upon hearing this, Ansol falls into deep thought. He cannot understand how a character that looks like a monk's religious name can mean blood. How can it signify blood? Jiang stops in front of a building. He asks without looking back, does Ansol know this? What is the difference between orthodox and demonic internal energy cultivation techniques? Ansol simply says he doesn't know. Hu Zhenggang starts explaining. Orthodox cultivation methods generate energy according to the natural flow of the human body. In contrast, the demonic path creates a massive amount of energy right from the start, pushing limits far beyond what a human body can naturally tolerate. But this goes against the natural nature of the human body. Over time, orthodox martial masters develop a purer and stronger true chi. Then he tells Ansol. He mentions the technique he is about to teach. It is something beyond the limits of demonic martial arts. It is the finest and most miraculous cultivation technique. But greatness always demands a price. He raises his left hand and shows it. All of his fingers are missing. Seeing this, Ansol's eyes widen. The difficulty of learning this technique was so terrifying that he ate his own fingers to endure the pain. Looking at his severed hand, he says, only those who can endure such torment can obtain this power. Only those capable of enduring such torment can succeed. Only then can the body achieve complete balance with internal energy. While looking toward the sky, he continues speaking. He was once the martial master of the Azure Dragon Temple in An'an. But he was expelled after being accused of murder. His internal energy had been sealed. In his attempt to regain it, the Wandering Beast Pavilion helped him. To repay his debt, he promised to give them his internal energy cultivation technique. Now he says if Ansol does not learn it, I will fail to keep my promise myself. Therefore, he must first test Ansol. His face becomes serious as he explains. He will open all 365 of Ansol's acupuncture points at once with his true chi. Because mastering this technique requires every vessel to be clear. Ansol begins to feel restless. Hu Zhenggang says. He explains that this process normally occurs slowly, with ample time and caution. Doing it all at once is excruciatingly painful. He warns Ansol. He says that if you are not confident you can endure it, quit now. Ansol takes a deep breath and composes himself. He says, I will do it. Hu Zhenggang smiles faintly, as if waiting for something. Then without wasting any time, he raises both hands. A shining true energy fills them and he shouts, don't let Ansol fall behind later. In a swift movement, he presses his hand onto Ansol's abdomen where the dent is. A wave of heavy pressure spreads through the air. Light envelops Ansol's body. Energy spreads outward, the surrounding area begins to tremble. But then Hu Zhenggang's face changes. It wasn't what he expected. Piercing each acupuncture point with true qi should feel like scraping a bone with a knife. But Ansal is still standing. Silently, Hu Zhanggang hesitates. He lets the process continue. He does so to see how much the boy can endure. Then something even stranger happens. No impurity emerges from Ansal's body. No foul smell appears. He slowly pulls his hand back. The light begins to go out. Ansal sits completely still. His breath flows steadily. Alas, it is on Hu Zhanggang's face. A surprised smile begins to spread, as if he suddenly understood what he was seeing. Can this happen? That this boy never had any latent energy in his veins from the beginning. Ansal's breath calms. He returns to consciousness. As soon as he opens his eyes, he sees Hu Zhanggang laughing. His laughter becomes increasingly frantic each second. Then suddenly, Hu Zhanggang stops. He asks whether his name is really Bo Ansal. Panicking, Ansal slowly nods his head in agreement. Shining his chi with enthusiasm, Hu Zhanggang smiles. He says that he will teach Ansal his internal energy cultivation technique. Half a year later, on the summit of a fog-covered rock, a tall young man stands silently, staring at the fog. Behind him, Hu Zhanggang is sitting, holding a gigantic stone with one hand. He throws that stone forcefully with a strange, excited smile. The stone flies straight towards the young man. But he doesn't move. The stone shatters instantly upon hitting his bare back. A thin vapor rises from his skin. Hu Zhanggang picks up another stone. And tossing it with one hand, he smiles contentedly. He declares that this boy has truly mastered it. Calling his name, he brings forward the person standing at the edge of the cliff. He is Ansal. The person standing in front is no one else but Ansal. Master Hu Zhanggang is silently watching him with pride, he thinks. Ansal learned in just half a year what took him 3 whole years. In his mind, he believes. Ansal has achieved far beyond his expectations. His gaze settles on Ansal's danshan, and seeing him brings him satisfaction. Now Ansal, after understanding the technique, has learned to properly spread the true qi gathered within himself. He understands that Ansal has awakened his hidden potential. In such a short time, his body has become so healthy and strong. When Ansal turns toward him, he says, Hu Zhang. He says that it is time to begin now. And Ansal simply nods silently. He sits in the lotus position. He calms his breath. He continues until his heartbeat becomes completely steady. With full concentration, he thinks. He realizes that he was able to reach the first level so quickly just with Master Hu Zhang's guidance. But that is not enough. This circulation technique has a total of 8 levels. And before moving forward from here, one must at least reach level 2. Master Hu Zhang is standing silently watching him. Ansal begins to circulate his energy. But then something strange happens. A black energy starts leaking from Ansal's body. Gradually, as it surrounds him like a hazy shadow, Hu Zhang's proud expression suddenly turns to confusion. He feels the texture of this energy. In the very next moment, his eyes widen with fear. The black energy emerges with terrifying intensity. Even the air begins to get compressed. And then he realizes it. This is level 2, the realm of untended bone and muscle. He instantly understands. He realizes that as soon as he reaches this stage, the cultivator's bones and muscles reach their peak. But such a rapid transformation puts terrifying pressure on the body. Thinking this, an image of muscles bursting appears in his mind. They are tearing apart from their own strength. At roughly the same time, Ansal's lips part. He also endures that burning pain with his teeth. The pain is spreading throughout his body. His body is trembling. Under this unbearable pressure, his temperature keeps rising. His skin is scorching. Master Hu Zhang runs up behind him. And he places his hand between Ansal's shoulders. His voice cutting through the chaos says. He says that one should abandon all frivolous thoughts and just focus. The moment his hand touches, he feels the inner raging imbalance. Ansal's body can no longer stop this true qi. If it continues like this, his internal injuries won't even be healable. He realizes that there is no other way. Hu steadies his breath. He prepares to ignite his primordial essence, his innate life force. He sends his energy through his hand into Ansal's core. A few moments pass as he, having sacrificed his own vital strength, works to stabilize the violent energy raging within the boy. Then Ansal's breathing steadies again. The heat diminishes. Suddenly, Ansal opens his eyes with a sharp breath. He feels as if jolted awake from a bad dream. His hands involuntarily rise. His eyes widen in disbelief. He feels a new, effortless flow of power coursing through his body. He immediately understands. This can only be energy. He panics and turns around. And he sees Master Hu Zhang lying on the ground, coughing weakly. Startled, he breaks his meditation. And he runs to reach him. He asks why Hu Zhang didn't give him his true qi and why he acted so foolishly. Hu Zhang, between broken, ragged breaths, lets out a weary laugh. He brushes aside Ansal's concern with a hand gesture and says, "Don't worry, Ansal could never leave the Wandering Beast Pavilion until he truly learns." Ansal keeps watching him. He is full of emotions and thinks, that beneath his stern behavior, Master Hu Jiang is a deeply caring person. When the old master steadies himself and stands, Ansal wants to express his gratitude, he swears. He says that he will never forget this favor. But Hu Jiang stops him midway. No, you will have to forget, Ansal remains standing. Turning his back, he says it's easy. He says that he should erase even his presence from his mind. These words resonate in Ansal's heart. And along with them, the voice of his first guru, SW2. It was said long ago, whether hatred or kindness. If you can forget, then forgetting is better. This echo silences him. He gets lost in thought. He wonders why everyone says this to him. Whose voice again distracts his concentration. If you truly want to repay his favor, then you will have to reach the 8th level. The realm of great origins. A faint energy emanates from his body. When he looks toward the sky and accepts, he says that he has only reached the 5th level. That's what he says. Anal will get revenge. Anal keeps listening without saying anything. And gradually his expression turns into determined resolve. He says that he understood. Turning his back, Hu Jiang says that now that he has reached the 5th level, he doesn't need his guidance. Now he needs not the depth of the circulation technique, but the completion of the basics of martial arts. He points toward the western cliffs of the Wandering Beast Pavilion, and he orders Anal to climb up there and train. This instruction feels like a farewell. Ansal stands silently for a long time. While looking at his master's back, he bows deeply, joins his hands, and thanks him from the heart. The master does not turn. Only when Ansal's presence fades, he, vanishing into the air, slowly repeats the same words, as if he is bidding him farewell. 3 months later, on a quiet night at the Wandering Beast Pavilion, some men are drinking and talking in an inn. One of them lifts his cup and says, he heard that the founding divine squad returned this morning. He says that perhaps they went to finish off the Ajo Dragon Pavilion. The other man bursts out laughing and says, that's exactly right. After all, the Ajo Dragon Pavilion had harmed one of their disciples. Only the founding squad could do such a thing. The first man also starts laughing, he says. He says that hearing this is very refreshing, then he asks, isn't it also time for the Wind Cloud squad to return? Outside, a faint echo of someone's footsteps reverberates on the rooftops. The glint of swords is visible. The man sitting opposite smiles as he watches this commotion outside the window. He says, don't finish the conversation yet. The other man, slightly intoxicated, also starts looking outside. With a drunken smile, he mutters. He doesn't understand why these people, unlike the others, don't come through the door and perhaps even descend onto the roofs, running one after another swiftly in the moonlight. But as soon as this sequence ends, a figure stops. A teasing voice comes from behind him. He stands like that as if being painted. The voice continues. Why is he striking a dramatic pose on the rooftops instead of going straight to the Ajo Wine Pavilion? Upon hearing the call of that name, he turns slightly. Actually, he is the leader of the Wind Cloud squad of the Wandering Beast Pavilion. Removing his mask, he talks to the person in front. While addressing the Vice Pavilion Master, Dan Chong stands with the same playful smile on his lips. He says he has reminded him many times. He says that when it's just the two of them, they should call him by name. But Baku, raising his eyebrows, calls it nonsense. He says the pavilion's rules are indeed quite loose. Breathing out slowly, he changes his stance on the matter. And he says that the timing is absolutely right. He was supposed to meet Dan Chong anyway. Dan Chong blinks. In confusion, he asks what it means. Baku's face hardens. He says that he heard. Dan Chong has enrolled a boy with great potential into the 10 Demon Lords. However, he had opposed it from the beginning, he asks. Why Dan Chong accepted that boy? While he was supposed to join the Fire Rain set. Dan Chong says in a lazy, cool manner while rubbing his chin. He says that actually it was the boy's own decision. The boy himself refused the Fire Rain set offer. Baku stares at him in disbelief and repeats the question. Did the boy really choose the Wandering Beast Pavilion? Dan Chong nods and says yes, and adds. He says that because of this decision, the boy almost had to fight that mad sword demon. Then he smiles and asks, shouldn't Baku be proud that the boy chose his pavilion? Baku turns his face away with a slight annoyance. He reminds that because of that decision, the Fire Rain Sword sect did not select any of the 10 demon masters this year, and the sect leader expressed displeasure. Dan Chong's eyes narrow slightly. His voice suddenly becomes low and soft. He simply says, I understand. This calm further irritates Baku. He moves forward, his voice rises. He shouts that Dan Chong knows well the Demon Palace has long suspected them, and the Wandering Beast Pavilion has suffered because of this. Dan Chong, remaining calm with a mischievous smile, says that Baku has been entangled in war politics for a long time. He reminds that the purpose of the Wandering Beast Pavilion is to practice martial arts. He retorts that it is only an ideal, not reality. Then he exhales gently and calms himself. He says that he now has an urgent task. Opening his eyes, the irritation inside him still remains. He asks where the boy is. He answers that among the 10 demon masters, the boy's place is now a fallen leaf drifting on the lake, in danger. He takes a measured step, moving with practiced motion. Without breaking the surface, Ansal slides over the water. His body flows in an unknown rhythm. His face is unreadable, appearing calm. The memories of Ansal shine. Gavel is that great thief who was once called the Swift Phantom. While teaching him agility art, the old man boasted that this technique erases the boundary between movement and footwork. He named it the Swift Phantom after himself, and warned that disciples who cannot keep up with its speed often become disabled. Nevertheless, he was very curious to see what Ansal would do. After a month, Ansal's movements have become as fluid as water, absolutely perfect. Gavel's eyes widen. It's hard to believe that Ansal reached the 3rd master level in just a month. In the joy of retiring, he points at Ansal and declares that finally someone has attained a level worthy of inheriting his movement technique. With a pack of gear slung over his shoulder, he says, he is closing the training hall. Ansal has learned the basics. Now by applying it in the real world, he must refine this technique himself. Ansal moves forward. Again, each step slipping on the water is filled with precise confidence. From the upper rock, Dishin and B silently watch him. Dishin narrows his eyes, trying to recognize. And suddenly clarity appears in his gaze. This is it, Master Gavel's Swift Phantom. A movement art that is considered impossible to learn this quickly. He affirms it in a queenly voice. This knowledge ignites a spark of anger within him. Was Ansal, as soon as he arrived here, focusing only on movement techniques? Dan Chong's faint smile erases that thought. He says that Ansal came here just half a year ago, and only last month he learned the cultivation technique from the Haijang gang at Iron Peak. He turns to him and asks, sounding incredulous, is it true that Ansal mastered the wild beast path on Hell Island in just 2 weeks? Dan Chong, without letting him finish speaking, says dryly, yes, the rumors are true. He adds that Su W gave Ansal all his ultimate spring spiritual water. Perhaps because of this, his transcendental nerve plexus developed quickly. But Bakai looks at him with a serious gaze, and notes that this help alone is not enough to explain the wild beast path key. There were supposed to be 10 demon masters, but with Juno's arrival they became 14. This is a shock in itself. He asks whether the Pavilion Master will soon come out of his isolation. Dishin says in a calm tone, all these arrangements are part of that preparation. Bunny's face tightens. Seriously, he reminds that the plan for 10 demon masters came from the Demon Palace. He is sure that Dunchi is. He is convinced that it is filled with 10 demonic sex complaints. Dunchi remains steadfast, he says. The Wandering Beast Pavilion, unlike others, values survival of the fittest. The other demonic sexes choose a successor and send them. Thus it is natural that they are astonished. When they were told to train the demon masters in their martial arts, Dan Shin pondered. While stroking his chin, Dan Shin asks. He wonders whether Bacon understands the true purpose of the plan. The purpose is to train martial artists who can challenge famous masters. Bacon knows, yet he sees something else. Ron says that Dan Shin also knows. Dan Shin replies that some demonic sexes are still unknown. They are sending their chosen disciples. Without understanding the true game, Dan Shin says war strategy is not useless. If there is true talent in the disciples, then they deserve the opportunity. Bacon accepts it in principle, but his focus remains on Ansal. Because of that child, Ansal, the only son of the Kungwu White Demon Temple leader, died. Ansal remains immersed in his training. His words have no effect at all, Dan Shin thinks. The 10 demonic sexes have approved the 3rd trial. Kangrun's death is misfortune. But what can the Wandering Beast Pavilion do, he wonders. Is it only the White Demon Temple that is angry with Ansal? Bihu says that the Fire Rain Sword sect is like a blazing fire. Someone outside the sect's disciples has learned an advanced sword technique. The sword demon Heya is demanding punishment. And Xian Wang, the instructor who taught Yunal, has been removed and shut down. Dan Sh grabs his head. Taking a deep, weary breath, he can't believe that punishing the teacher alone is insufficient. Now they also want to punish the student. He calls the set petty and asks what they truly want. What do they actually want? Biki answers he wants to investigate. That Yunal truly deserves to be included among the 10 demon masters. Or not, and also that he should never use that sword technique again. Dan Sh turns his head. While shaking his head, he deems such a request ridiculous. Ansal is already in the 10 demon masters. And the disciple of the Wandering Beast Pavilion also falls silent. Dan Sh's eyes look down. Yunal pauses his practice and looks up at them. Suddenly, with a swift movement, he leaps. And he descends, coming over to them above the cliff. He bows and respectfully salutes Dan Shin. Calling him Vice Master makes Dan Shin's face soften. Ansal, showing hidden pride inside, has truly learned movement techniques at an extraordinary level. Biki's sharp voice cuts through the air, he asks, is this truly the demon master of the pavilion? Dan Shin speaks up in the middle and introduces himself. He says that this is the squad leader back of the Wind Cloud squad. Yunal then bows and greets by cupping his fists together. Biki simply nods his head slightly in acknowledgement. Biki comes to say something, but Dan Shin waves his hand to stop him. He says that no explanation is needed. Ansel silently watches them, and then in a calm voice says that whatever has happened, he will take the responsibility himself. Biki folds his arms. He realizes that Ansel has heard everything. Danshin furrows his brows. Ansel explains that he used the Kai vibration mind-eye technique of the Wandering Beast path. He performs movement techniques while feeling the vibrations of water. Biki, stunned, asks whether he really maximized all his senses with the chief vibration while walking. Ansel confirms every step was in perfect sync with the water below. Danshin bows and smiles. Teasingly says that Yunal is always like this. Isn't it astonishing that Biki tightly crushes a handful of dust? With the sound of grains being crushed, he mutters in disbelief that such a genius truly exists. Excitedly, he asks Danshin, why then is their trust in Ansel not complete? Shouldn't they send him to the Demon Palace for testing? Danshin gets flustered and says that a child can also be killed. Biki stops him. He says that the palace wants to calm the ego of the White Demon Temple leader, not to cause him any harm. If they reject the palace's proposal, the situation will worsen further. Danshin opposes. Ansel is very small. Ansel speaks in the middle. He says he will go. The voice is steady and firm. He explains that the Demon Palace's real concern is its image. Killing a child would tarnish their reputation, and moreover, since the Wandering Beast Pavilion is disabled, they cannot run away from the challenge. Danshin bangs his forehead. Biki nods his head. He says that the child is right. This confrontation was bound to happen. It is better that he moves forward on his own. Better than becoming a problem later. Danshin lifts his head and grants permission. He can take the test. Just promise the palace to overlook the previous events. Ansel folds his palms together and bows, indicating understanding. After some time, Ansel stops at the gates of the Demon Palace. He remembers the first time he came here. He was completely unfamiliar with martial arts, having no knowledge of it. Now he moves with purpose. As the Demon Master of the Wandering Beast Pavilion, he is the all-encompassing pavilion of the Demon Palace, i.e., its central mind, the hub of its administration and strategy. A guard points toward the doors. As soon as he goes inside, someone will guide him further. A board falls. The all-encompassing pavilion, the administrative headquarters of the Demon Palace, is equivalent to the General Strategist Pavilion of the Murim Alliance. He moves forward and opens the door. The light inside spreads across his face. His eyes widen. Hey guys, if you're still watching, thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. If you don't want to miss the next episode, subscribe and don't forget to press the bell icon. Make sure to like and comment. Your feedback motivates me even more. And once again, thank you so much for watching.